The day the outbreak hit, we were still at the hotel, working overtime on an online meeting. Downstairs, people had already started biting each other. The group chats were exploding with videos. The boss was still lecturing us not to get swept up in the rumors. It has been 7 days now. We are not dead. We have not lost our minds either. We just do not dare to step a single foot outside the room. The food is almost gone. The signal is completely dead. Any sound outside the door makes my legs turn to jelly. When this disaster first started, we thought it was just a bad bout of the flu. We did not even pause our work. Me and 3 others from the project team came here on a business trip a week ago for a client. For the upcoming launch, over 10 million had already been dumped into the early preparations. 2 or 3 years of our lives had been poured into this. Success or failure all depended on this final push. Last Friday night around 10 of the clock, the 4 of us were still working overtime in the client's conference room. Suddenly, the group chats went nuclear. People kept posting clips from all over the country, leaking rumors about a massive flu outbreak. We did not pay much attention at the time. We just treated it as a bit of gossip to pass the time, reminded our families back home to stay safe, and packed up to head back to the hotel. Saturday was supposed to be another work day, but since we had been grinding until 3 a.m. for days, the manager decided to let us work from the hotel. So I followed my plan and slept until I woke up naturally. I took out my earplugs, opened the curtains, and gave a long stretch toward the heavy rain. Down below was a half-finished luxury villa complex, overgrown with weeds. Since I checked in, I had not seen a single worker, but it was much quieter than facing the main road. My stomach started growling. I fished my phone out from under the blanket to order some food. I deliberately avoided checking the messaging apps, because there'd probably be a message from the boss breathing down my neck for materials. As long as I did not see it, the world would stay peaceful for a little bit longer. That is when I realized something was seriously off. Even though this was just a small, low-tier city, there was never a shortage of good food. I spent forever picking, and finally settled on a bowl of luocefen. Then I ordered 2 milk teas from another shop, but neither shop accepted the order. I cursed my bad luck, and tried a few more places. Same thing. No one was taking orders. What the hell was going on? I bit the bullet and switched over to the messaging app, planning to find a colleague to go out and grab a bite. That is when I saw it. The notification bar was flooded with messages. Every single one was about this flu. There were even photos of the infected. Their corneas had turned gray. Their faces were deathly pale. They did not look like living people at all. In one shot, someone was even clutching a severed arm, gnawing on it. There were all kinds of official news reports too. Besides reporting on the infected roaming the streets everywhere, they were heavily emphasizing for everyone to stay indoors and not open their doors. The more I looked, the more terrified I became. The more I looked, the less I could believe it. Was I hallucinating because I played too many zombie games? Or was I still dreaming? Thinking about my hypoglycemia, I quickly shoved a piece of candy into my mouth, then opened the door and walked out. The corridor was eerily quiet. Some doors were left wide open. The cleaning lady, who is usually around, was nowhere to be seen. I ran past 4 or 5 rooms to knock on the door of 302. That is where my best friend and colleague stayed. His nickname is 11. He is a tall, sturdy-looking guy. I would been knocking for ages, just as I thought he would left, and was about to give up. He opened the door, rubbing his bleary, sleepy eyes. I slipped inside instantly. It was pitch black in there. Even the curtains were still drawn. What is the deal? I have not even had enough sleep yet. He grumbled at me with a long face. Look at your phone, now. Hurry. I plopped down on his bed, anxiously urging him, mumbling in annoyance. He unplugged his phone from the nightstand charging cable. His expression went from confused to absolutely terrified. What are you seeing? I asked him. 11 handed the phone to me. His chat apps looked exactly like mine. I looked up at him. His voice was trembling as he said, "Pinch my arm, quick." He grabbed my skin and started twisting. He pinched it hard and gave it a real wrench. I gritted my teeth, telling myself it did not hurt. This has to be a dream. But seeing that chunk of flesh nearly torn off, I could not help but jump up. I let out a blood-curdling scream, reflexively swinging my hand and giving him a hard slap. Once we regained our composure, we sat on the bed, totally dejected. 11 fumbled for the remote and turned on the TV. Let us see what the news says. Reluctantly, he tuned into the official channel. The anchor's voice was thick with tears. The footage coming through was bloody and chaotic. The recommended measures were just to stay home and wait for rescue. Do not go out on the streets. 11 flipped through several channels. It was all the same. Finally, in one studio broadcast, a piercing scream rang out. The feed was cut off. FCK. He threw the remote down in a breakdown. I ran into the bathroom and started calling my family. My hands were shaking so violently, I could barely hold the phone. The dialing animation on the screen kept flashing. The ringtone kept playing, but no one was picking up. My legs finally gave out. I slid down against the wall, collapsing onto the floor. I was crying while incessantly sending them texts, calling out to them on chat apps, redialing over and over again. Pick up, please pick up. I could hear 11 outside doing the exact same thing. A massive wave of panic hit me. My heart raced, and my vision went dark. The world seemed to vanish in an instant, leaving only me and that flickering screen. This won't work. I need to go home. I wiped away my tears, and started frantically browsing ticket websites. Flights, high-speed rail buses. Not a single site would load. Eventually, I even looked for ride-hailing apps. I did not care how much it cost. I just needed to get home. I cursed myself bitterly. Why did I have to come so far away? Why did not I just stay in my hometown and find a stable job? Nothing. It was just like those damn zombie movies. Nothing at all. I do not know how much time passed. I leaned against the wall as I walked out of the bathroom. The room was eerily silent. The only thing I could hear was the torrential rain outside. 11 was slumped on the bed. His phone had been tossed aside. Without saying a word, I sat down beside him. I tried my best to keep my emotions in check. I am going home right now. You are coming with me. He suddenly sat up. He grabbed his backpack and dumped all his office supplies out. His home was in this province. He had a car too. Getting back would only take a couple of hours. All right, I am going back to grab my things. I did not waste any time. I headed straight back to my room to start packing. I emptied the office supplies out of my bag. I packed all the food provided in the room, along with the snacks I would brought for the business trip. I took an athletic vest and a denim jacket. I grabbed my phone charger and 2 bottles of mineral water. I did not bother with the laptop or the stack of confidential client files. Even if this whole thing turned out to be one big false alarm, I was ready to quit and walk away anyway. 11 was already waiting for me in the hallway. The moment he saw me step out, he turned and bolted toward the elevator lobby. Tacitly, neither of us mentioned our other colleagues. We simply could not afford to worry about them. We did not run into a single soul along the way. The elevator was still working normally. We quickly made our way down to the underground garage. We sprinted toward 11's car. 11 gasped for air as he slammed his foot on the gas. I pulled out both our phones to keep checking for updates. We had not driven very far. Before he slammed on the brakes, I nearly flew through the windshield. Fighting back the nausea, I looked to see what had happened. I saw several trucks piled up together, completely blocking the exit. Heavy rain was pouring in past them. The floor was already flooding. Quick, go through the entrance, now. 11 looked like he was seeing red. He did not care anymore about the nice car he would worked day and night for. We scraped against the walls a few times. We reached the entrance, but it turned out there were even more cars blocked over here. There was no way out. What do we do? He pounded the steering wheel and shouted. The lobby. I threw the door open and started running. Once we are out of the hotel, we will just hotwire a car on the street. The lobby was just as deserted. Only the delivery robot was still spinning in circles. While we were sound asleep, everyone else had already rushed away, hurrying back to their families, who would still be hanging around the office. Another mad dash. We reached the main doors of the hotel, only to find them despairingly chained shut from the outside. 11 grabbed a chair from the reception desk to smash the glass. But I stopped him. Look, is that someone over there? I pointed to a spot near the glass for 11 to see. There really was a man there. He was wearing a black t-shirt and shorts, hunched over, doing something. He was soaked to the bone, even though he was standing where the rain could not reach. 11 pounded on the door and called out to him. Hey, what is the situation out there? Do you work for the hotel? Open the door for us. The man's silhouette paused for a moment. He took a few steps back. Then he turned his head and everything went black. I finally passed out. That sums up everything we have endured over the last 3 days. Later, 11 carried me back to our hotel room on his back. The two of us have been cooped up here ever since. Our emotions are teetering on the edge of a total breakdown. My mind is filled with nothing but that man's terrifying blood-soaked face. I can't think of anything else. As fans of zombie movies and games, we both thought we had a certain level of mental resilience against them. Hell, we might have even looked forward to a day like this. But now that it is actually happening, we have realized it is all more than we can handle. Over these 3 days, the notifications on my phone grew fewer and fewer. By now, it has gone completely silent. Not a single bar of signal left. We do not know if they are inside the hotel with us. We have not dared to take a single step out of this room. The food and water we brought before we left is down to the very last meal. Tomorrow is the day we are forced to face reality. What will tomorrow bring? I do not even know when I fell asleep last night. The entire night was a chaotic blur. Faces of colleagues, family and friends, even childhood playmates, kept appearing and vanishing in my dreams. I was chasing them, screaming for them. It was more exhausting than being awake. When I woke up this morning, sunlight was already spilling across the curtains. 11 was beside me, his breathing steady. I leaned over to check the watch on his arm, to save whatever battery we had left. We both turned our phones off after the power went out. 9:13 a.m. I gave 11 a nudge. He woke up instantly. Guess he was not sleeping very soundly either. Over the past few days, he has gotten noticeably thinner. We have to find a way out of here, I said, after a long silence. He got up without saying a word. You see, the prerequisite for avoiding the world is being alive. When you are truly at the end of your rope, fighting for survival is the only choice you have got. I ran to the bathroom and splashed my face with cold water. I felt a lot better instantly. I stared at myself in the mirror, imagining my face, my neck, and my arms being torn to shreds by bites. I could not help but crack a bitter smile. 11 and I crushed up some instant noodles, sprinkled on the seasoning, and ate them dry like snacks, washing it down with bottled water. We could not bring ourselves to drink the milk yet. We stuffed it into our bags, along with the biscuits. I changed into an athletic tank top, and tied a denim jacket around my waist. There was not much in the room that could serve as a weapon. 11 dismantled 2 metal pipes from the desk lamps. They will have to do for now. Once we were ready, I took a deep breath, and opened the door. His face from yesterday flashed before my eyes again. It was clearer and more terrifying than in my dreams. I fought the overwhelming urge to turn tail and run, following 11 toward the stairwell. Our plan was to hit the hotel's mini-mart first, then head to the garage and try to clear a path out. Even though smashing the lobby glass would be easier, we really did not want to go back there. Besides, we did not think we could just hotwire a car. That movie trick where you start a car with 2 wires. Yeah, we definitely do not have that skill. The temperature inside the hotel was starting to rise. It was gradually becoming like a steamer basket. Add to that the extreme tension and anxiety. Before long, both of us were completely drenched in sweat. The hotel's mini-mart is located in the lobby on the way to the garage. It took us nearly half an hour just to get from the 3rd floor down to the 1st. Sneaking around and playing hide and seek, it took over 10 minutes. To cover a distance we could normally run in one. Once inside the shop, we both breathed a sigh of relief. Seems like the hotel interior is still relatively safe. The shop was small, but enough for us to restock on food. A row of shelves had been knocked over, likely caused by people's haste. During the evacuation last week, the shop had larger hiking backpacks. We each swapped for a new one, then grabbed an extra. Every bit of food we could find. We stuffed it all in there. Then I ran to the utility section, grabbed 2 flashlights and 2 packs of batteries. We each tucked a fruit knife into our waistbands. Finally, 11 shouldered a full crate of water, and we reluctantly headed toward the garage. In each of my hands, I gripped a long handle. I would just ripped off some brooms from the shop. I walked ahead of 11, staying alert, constantly checking his 6. I wanted to make sure he did not have to ditch that water if danger popped up. The stairs down to the garage were dark and long, creepy as hell. It took us another half hour to get everything loaded into the car. What time is it? I slumped into the passenger seat and asked. Past 11. He was slumped in the same position, answering with whatever breath he had left. Let us go. Let us try to get out of here before noon. He started the car. This time he did not floor it like before. Instead, he crept forward cautiously, terrified of hitting something. I also dreaded that sound, the sound of flesh tearing and blood spraying. The most horrific music in the world. We drove back to the garage exit. The puddles on the ground had not dried yet. We tiptoed over to inspect the condition of those 4 cars. The one furthest out seemed to be a hotel delivery van. Something went wrong when it hit the gate arm. For some reason, it had crashed right into the security booth. The 3 cars behind must have been tailgating or driving too fast. They slammed right into it. The worst damage was to a sedan in the middle. Both ends were crumpled up like an accordion, and the airbags had deployed. We took turns swinging the broom handles as we checked each car one by one, terrified that something might jump out. Even if we did not get bitten, with our nerves, we would probably die of a heart attack. The 3 behind were all sedans. The doors were open. One of the seats had some bloodstains left on it. Looks like after the crash. The passengers and driver scrambled out and ran for it. 11 pulled a tow hook from the trunk. He started towing the 3 cars back into the garage one by one. Meanwhile, I went to check on the van. What I saw made my legs go weak. I practically fell to my knees. The van driver was still inside. He and another person had both turned. They were strapped into their seats by seatbelts, flailing arms that were covered in obvious bite marks. Don't look at the front of the van, I said to 11 as he walked over. Just tow it out of the way, then we can leave. It was not that I thought 11 was a coward. It is just that I really did not know which one of us would lose at first. 11 buried his head in his work, hooking the tow bar onto the back of the truck. He silently gently pulled the car that was blocking the middle of the passage out of the way. Once the gap was opened, we did not want to stay for even a split second. We got in the car and left. As we passed the truck's cabin, 11's face suddenly turned deathly pale. He had clearly seen something inside. All I could do was squeeze his arm, offering a bit of comfort if he could even feel it. I opened a bottle of Red Bull, and we took turns drinking it. It is noon now, but neither of us has any appetite. The streets are empty. Occasionally, we pass a couple of wrecked cars, or one or two wandering figures. 11 is heading toward the highway. I know in my heart the road will be piled up with vehicles. There might even be swarms of them out there, but that is our only choice. We just have to take it one step at a time. We did not even discuss where we were going. The destination has to be home, no matter how much despair fills our hearts, or how much time we lose to emotional breakdowns. The first thing we do when we crawl back up to start over is always to run back to our loved ones. 11's parents live in a middle-class neighborhood in the provincial capital. Their place is a bit older than the one they bought for their son, as his best friend. I have been there for dinner once. The decor is not exactly luxurious, but it is very cozy. What worries me most now is their home is on the 12th floor. How are we supposed to get there alive? 10 minutes later, the car pulled onto the highway, not through the regular entrance, because that way was already blocked off. We wandered back and forth for a while, until we found a section of the guardrail that had been smashed open. So we cut across the grassy slope and merged in. After that, it was just a long drive. Occasionally, we would get a cold sweat when one of them poked its head out from an accident-stricken vehicle. But the more we saw, the less scary it gradually became. 11 insisted on teaching me how to drive, because I used to be lazy. I always just called a cab whenever I went out. I never bought a car, and I never learned to drive. He is right, though. In this world, driving is an essential skill. When we passed a gas station, we even managed to grab 2 cans of gasoline, just in case. What should have been a 2-hour trip took us over 5 hours of driving. By the time we got close to the city, it was already starting to get dark. Abandoned vehicles became more frequent, bottlenecking the highway exit into a total mess. We took a long detour before spotting a tiny budget hotel by the road. We pulled over there, planning to head out again at first light tomorrow. Right now, I am lying on the bed in the outermost room on the first floor, writing this diary. 11 went into the bathroom to wash up and has not come out for ages. Our luck is not half bad. At least we have not seen any of those zombies on the first floor. Oh, no, I mean them. I have decided not to use that other word in my diary anymore. It just sounds too unpleasant. The less I write it here, the more I hope things can feel a little lighter. We made the right call. It has started pouring rain outside again. I hope our luck gets even better tomorrow. Today is officially the worst day I have had since I was born. Oh, wait. No, thinking back, the worst day was probably the day I was actually born. Lately, I have been wondering, what kind of sins did our generation commit in a past life to deserve this kind of torture? Too cowardly to live, yet still breathing. It is 9:00 a.m. again. I was jolted awake by my own nightmare. When I woke up, 11 was already sitting at the edge of the bed. I do not know what was on his mind. Why did not you wake me up? I asked him. Today is going to be a long, hard climb, he said. We did a quick wash up, ate some bread and drank some milk. There was too much stuff in the car. It was impossible to carry it all. So we repacked our backpacks. Each of us took 3 Snickers bars, 2 chocolate bars, 5 sticks of jerky, and 2 bottles of water, plus some rubbing alcohol spray I found at the hotel front desk, some Band-Aids and a small roll of gauze. There are supermarkets everywhere in the city. We won't run out of food. We tried to pack as light as possible. Once that was done, we grabbed our fruit knives, took a broom handle as a staff, tucked away a hotel tourist map and a flashlight. We watched the street from the window for a long time before heading out. Before sleeping last night, we spent ages studying the route. Since 11 is a local, we should not get lost. But all our experience comes from movies and games. There is no telling if reality will play by the same rules. We can only take it one step at a time. The puddles from last night's rain had mostly evaporated. The air, baked by the sun, became stiflingly hot. We had not even considered using a vehicle at first, assuming we would have to navigate the gridlock on foot. But when I saw a row of e-bikes and bicycles not far from the hotel, I was beyond thrilled. They were all locked. 11 said, "Let us check them out. Worst case, we break the locks." I was not ready to give up. We checked every single one in sight. Finally, on the side of the road, we found a lady's bicycle lying on the ground. It looked like it had been ditched mid-ride. Suddenly, I remembered something and ran back into the hotel to search. From the storage room behind the front desk, I dragged out a half-beaten bike. It probably belonged to the hotel owner. No lock. I gave 11 a smile. I think it was my first time smiling in days. My facial muscles felt stiff, and so, the two of us started riding along the edge of the traffic jam, heading toward the city center. As the number number of abandoned vehicles increased. Their numbers them surged as well. Fortunately, most of them were trapped in the clusters of cars, shuffling back and forth aimlessly. Actually, up until now, we have not had a close encounter with them. We do not know how they are lured or how they attack, but keeping the noise down and staying far away is definitely the right move. After about an hour of detouring, we drifted further and further from the main road. We were forced to change our original plan. The ground was no longer paved. They pushed us out to the meadows and dirt mounds in the outskirts. We could not ride the bikes anymore, so we had to ditch them. The sun grew more vicious. We were drenched in sweat, yet we still held back on drinking too much water. When it became unbearable, we would only take a tiny sip. Our heavy panting still managed to draw a few of them to follow us. They drove us like a whip, never letting us rest for a second. Let us lose them and take a breather. Beside a single-story house with a large, demolished character painted on it, I whispered to 11. "How do we shake them?" he mouthed back. I tugged his arm, signaling for him to follow me. Then we started circling around that house, leading them on a wild goose chase, lap after lap. Finally, when they were positioned at the opposite corner, I grabbed 11, and we both sprinted with everything we had behind the wall of another building, trying our best to stifle our heavy breathing. We crept toward the other end of the row of houses. After making sure they had not followed, I slumped to the ground against the wall. I pulled out a Snickers bar and forced it down with some bottled water. 11 sat down beside me, stuffing a lollipop into his mouth. "Do you think we can keep avoiding killing them forever?" 11 asked, his words muffled by the candy. "I am afraid not." Not even 3 minutes after I said those words, we heard a rustle in the roadside weeds. One of them lunged out. Caught off guard, 11 was pinned to the ground. He struggled instinctively. In the presence of food, the creature's mouth opened even wider. It snapped its jaws repeatedly, but it did not drool. Its eyes and skin were a deathly white, with a chunk of scalp rotting away. A thick, putrid stench of decay wafted from it. The t-shirt and shorts it wore, though covered in mottled bloodstains and grime, were clearly of high quality. My mind went completely blank. Even now, I still can't quite remember how I kept hitting it with the broom handle, how 11 and I managed to shove it to the ground together, or how I pulled out the paring knife and drove it into its brain. I only remember that we fled from there at a breakneck pace, desperately scrambling into an urban SUV. Once the doors were shut, we held our heads and sobbed. I do not know how long it took before we finally calmed down, wiping blood off each other and checking for injuries. Our broom handles were bent out of shape, abandoned next to the corpse. Don't think about it. Don't overanalyze. 11 wiped his tears and said, "Just act like we are already dead." He tried to start the car, and to our surprise, it roared to life. And so, we drove on. I nodded, unfolding the map to start planning a route. There were far fewer cars in this area. We did not need to take detours anymore. We headed toward the city center via the back roads. Under normal circumstances, it would take half an hour to drive to 11's complex. Now, even without the headache of traffic lights, there were many more obstacles. After what just happened, 11 had not fully regained his composure. Whenever he saw a few of them scattered on the road, he would just plow right through them. The sound of the SUV echoed through the silent streets. At least we were going fast. They had no way of catching up. I sat in the passenger seat, watching the decaying cityscape blur past, feeling an infinite sense of confusion and loneliness. Once we find our families, where do we go from there? In this massive city, there must be many other survivors, but they will eventually turn into them. Rather than that, maybe it is better to just keep going like this, find a relatively safe place, and just scrape by for the rest of our lives. The SUV turned a few corners. I saw someone faintly waving in the rearview mirror, only to be tackled. I stopped thinking about it. The car stopped on a deserted side street. It was a path between two residential complexes. No shops, no houses, only a few scattered cars covered in fallen leaves and dust. A row of sycamore trees lined both sides. Further in was the fence of the complex. I vaguely remembered that 11's building was right next to the fence. Entering from here should be the fastest way, and the safest. 11 adjusted the car again, driving it up onto the sidewalk, pressed tightly against the railing. It is almost 1:00 a.m. We have to move now. We chewed on 2 sticks of jerky, ate a bit of chocolate, and finished off an entire bottle of water. Then, gripping our fruit knives, we got out of the car. 11 climbed onto the roof first. I kept a wary lookout as I followed him over the fence. The moment we hit the ground, 11 bolted toward the stairwell. The building door had an electronic lock. Luckily, the power was still on. 11 was in too much of a hurry. After punching in the code, he yanked the door open, letting out a click that was not loud but was incredibly jarring. Every step after that was pure agony. There were bloodstains in the elevator lobby, stretching all the way inside the fire exit door. 11's face turned deathly pale. Mine probably looked just as bad. We held our fruit knives high. He took the lead while I covered the rear. We crept up the stairs, one step at a time. At every floor, we gently pulled the fire doors shut. These doors opened toward the hallway, so they should not be able to pull them open. The first 4 floors went smoothly enough. There were windows in the stairwell, providing enough light to see. But when we reached the 5th floor, we started hearing those muffled, guttural growls coming from their throats. By the 6th floor, the sounds grew louder, almost right above our heads. 11 went up 2 steps, peered around the corner, then signaled 2 with his fingers. I nodded, taking a deep breath to clear my head, readying myself for a fight to the death. We tiptoed up, step by step. I saw 2 of them wandering near the fire exit. Their backs were turned toward us. 11 gave me a look, lunged forward in 2 strides, and slammed the door shut. However, he was not fast enough. One of them happened to turn around, and got caught in the door frame. 11 pulled the door with all his might. I quickly drove my fruit knife into its head, and shoved it back inside. The other one started pounding on the other side of the door. Even though the door was shut, it was making a hell of a racket. We heard more roars responding. What do we do? Panic started to set in. Forgetting to stay quiet, I shouted, "What now?" "Run," 11 yelled, leading the way upstairs. 7th floor, 8th floor, 9th floor. They started pouring out from the fire exits, tumbling down the stairs toward us. We ran blindly, desperate to find a way out. The path to the 12th floor was blocked. We were forced into the 11th floor hallway. I did not even know if I was hurt, or if 11 was hurt. We were just being driven back by them, retreating constantly. 11 started banging on doors, trying to find a room to hide in. But how could you possibly break down a security door? I closed my eyes, ready for the end. Suddenly, the fear vanished. Abruptly, a pair of hands yanked us inside. I fell to the floor, completely caught off guard. Once I came to my senses, I realized we were inside a security door. A chubby young man was glaring at us, his face livid with rage. Before we could even say thanks, he started cursing under his breath. "Are you two trying to get killed? Couldn't you have gone literally anywhere else? What the hell are you doing at my doorstep? Is it that hard to just stay home? Why are you running around the building like idiots?" After his rant, he pulled out a radio. I dragged 2 idiots back in. Damn it, they owe me their lives. A few dry chuckles came from the other end, then silence. The commotion outside the door gradually died down. The chubby guy calmed down, sat on the sofa, and looked at us. "All right, out with it. Who are you guys?" 11 quickly replied, "Thanks. I live upstairs. Unit 1203. I was out on a business trip, and just managed to rush back." "If you mean room 1203, Xiaopong's expression shifted instantly. He paused for a moment. Finally he spoke up. "You should not go up there." "What is wrong?" 11 asked, grabbing Xiaopong suddenly. He nearly ripped the guy's t-shirt to shreds. "Did you see my parents? Tell me." Xiaopong shook his head slowly, looking pained. 11's voice grew quieter and quieter. He did not cry, but his eyes were hauntingly hollow. Terrified, he might just jump off the balcony right then. I grabbed him tight by the arm. "I am not going to kill myself." 11 shook off my hand, muttering to himself. "I do not deserve the easy way out. I deserve to stay in this hell and suffer. Maybe it is better they are gone. Yeah, maybe it is better." He slumped down, sitting on the cold floor tiles. He buried his head between his knees. I had no idea how to comfort him. All I could do was sit silently by his side. There were several scrapes on his arms. I pulled some iodine out of my bag, and gave his wounds a basic cleaning. Until night fell, 11 had not moved an inch. I asked Xiaopong to let us stay for the night. Everything else could wait until 11 recovered a bit. He did not refuse. He brought us a blanket, then headed back to his room, afraid of disturbing 11. I planned to wait until morning to talk to Xiaopong properly. I felt for 11, but I was even more terrified of news about my own family. Yet, for some reason, looking at the despair in 11, a surge of courage slowly rose within me. Suddenly, I wanted to protect myself. I wanted to do whatever it takes to survive in this godforsaken world. Today, we are staying at Xiaopong's place. His real name is Lin Hui. He used to run an escape room business. His place is stacked with wireless walkie-talkies. I used to love playing escape rooms, but now, it feels like I am playing a level one can never escape from. Early morning, I woke up on the freezing tiles of his living room floor. My whole body was aching like hell. I realized I had hogged the entire blanket wrapped around myself. 11 was sitting on the floor, leaning against the sofa, watching me. He looked spaced out. His face was haggard. "You did not stay up all night, did you?" I rubbed my eyes and asked him. "Couldn't sleep." He finally spoke. His voice was weak. "Where's the big guy?" I nodded my chin toward the bedroom, probably still asleep, while I was gnawing on some jerky. Xiaopong walked out. He did not stand on ceremony and plopped down right next to us. He asked me for a piece of jerky. and started chewing along with us. Seeing that 11 could not stomach anything, he pulled a carton of milk from a room. "Drink it," he said. "Don't tell me you do not like it. You do not have the luxury of being picky." 11 reached out and took it. He forced a faint smile. "Stop acting like it is the end of the world. Compared to most people, you are already incredibly lucky." Xiaopeng tore off a large chunk of meat savagely, then added, "At least you did not have to watch them die." The expression on his face was one of pure agony. 11 and I locked eyes. Neither of us dared to push the subject further. No matter what this world has become, you should all try your best to survive. Actually, you should take even better care of yourselves than before, he muttered softly, as if he was trying to convince himself. I was glad to see 11 actually listening to him seriously. "Was that your friend on the radio yesterday?" I changed the subject. Xiaopeng snorted and replied, "He is my partner from the escape room. We call him Guizi. He is trapped in that building up ahead. The guy spends all day clinging to the window looking down. Lord knows what he is looking for, but you guys should thank him. He saw you when you entered the building yesterday." And just like that, we started chatting. During our talk, the radio crackled again. A mischievous voice inside called out Fatty. Xiaopeng, watching the two of them bicker was quite entertaining. 11 and I could not help but laugh. We told Xiaopeng about everything we would been through on the road. Finally, I asked him, "Xiaopeng, do you have any idea what is actually going on with all of this?" By the time we woke up, they were already everywhere. To be honest, I do not really know either. Xiaopeng's face wrinkled up in thought. Thinking back on it now, that night, it was the middle of the night, to be exact. I could not sleep, so I started scrolling through my phone. Everything seemed normal at first. Then suddenly, trending topics about them started popping up. The heat was building up fast. The posts were multiplying by the second. I thought it was just some viral prank. It was actually pretty thrilling to watch. But then, things took a turn for the worse. Shouting and screams started coming from the neighborhood. People were running out to their cars, and the crowd just kept growing. I had no clue what was happening, so I ran out and grabbed a random person to ask. He said the stuff on the trending list was real. They had appeared in our district, too, and the infection speed was insanely fast. He even showed me his phone. It was a video of people being bitten on the streets in our city. "And you just believed it?" 11 asked, his attention fully captured. Not exactly. I was still half doubting it. Plus, I was confused. Why were these people running outside instead of staying home? Later, I figured it out. I had received a text message on my phone too. I just had not noticed it yet. The content was something like, "A level 1 deadly infectious disease has broken out in the city. Large-scale disinfection operations will begin shortly. Citizens who have not yet come into contact with the infected, please evacuate to the outskirts immediately." You know how it is. With the internet, panic spreads like wildfire. Combined with the shock of that text, people lost their ability to think critically. Something was wrong with the text, I said. Of course something was wrong. It came from a private number, and it did not explain the situation at all. It did not say when the disinfection would start, nor did it say how they would do it. In fact, if people had just turned on their TVs, the news was emphasizing for everyone to stay put at home. But the actual official emergency alerts were subconsciously ignored by people. Instead, this fake news spreading panic was everywhere. Long story short, by the time dawn broke, most of the people in the neighborhood were already gone. Honestly, I was not that determined either. I wanted to leave too. It was just because I skipped my driving lesson, and I was terrified of getting bitten if I just stepped outside. Being a coward actually saved my life. What happened then? And after that, around 8 or 9 in the morning, those people started coming back, and they came back screaming. From upstairs, I saw through my binoculars that some had already been bitten. Their families drove them back home. They did not realize that once they turned, they would start biting everyone else. The ones you ran into yesterday. Most of them were in that exact situation. My partner, though, he has got the luck of the devil. Out of that whole crowd, he is one of the few who made it home in one piece. After we got in touch, he told me, too many people tried to flee the city that night. The roads were completely gridlocked. Others were looting supermarkets and pharmacies for supplies, or heading out to find their relatives and friends. The crowds gathering outdoors were just too big. It just accelerated the infection. When those people realized they could not get out, they ran back home, carrying their wounds with them. The whole city fell in no time. Based on the info I scrolled through before the power went out, it is probably the same story everywhere. As for the source of the outbreak, there was not even time to investigate. Xiaopeng finished his story in one breath, then chugged half a bottle of water. With his cheeks puffed out like that, he actually looked kind of cute. So that much happened that night. If I had not been such a heavy sleeper, wearing earplugs and all, I wonder if I would be one of them, wandering the streets right now. What is your plan from here? Xiaopeng followed up with a question. I looked at 11, hesitantly, but he just gave gave me an encouraging nod. Home, I replied. I need to check on my family. Is your place in the city too? No, it is out of the province. Normally, it is about a 2-day drive. They live in an old house in a small county town. The neighborhood is not that crowded. So I think. I could not finish the sentence. They have a chance. 11 picked up for me. His voice was incredibly firm. No matter what the outcome is, we have to go and make sure. I was surprised he could move on so quickly. He seemed even braver than he was a few days ago. Maybe he had prepared himself mentally long ago. Or maybe when the world is stripped down to just us, every choice becomes simple. Xiaopeng, how about you? I am staying put. With a build like mine, I would be dead meat in half a day out there. There are plenty of supermarkets around here. I can survive for months, no problem. Once I eat through one area, I will just move to the next district. Keep on keeping on, you know. Xiaopeng answered quite casually. Don't need money anymore. Don't need to work to put food on the table. But I do have one favor to ask of you too. Consider it repayment for saving your lives. What'd you say? As long as it is within our power. Just say the word. Get my buddy Guizi over here. Communicating through the radio is a real pain. That way, we can actually keep each other company. Which building is he in? The one 2 blocks ahead. There is just one building between us. Is that doable? I look at 11. He is furrowing his brow. It is not reluctance on his face, but deep thought. We will go. I nod to Xiaopeng. He immediately beams with joy. But I can't guarantee success. There is a risk of casualties. It is okay. He was originally planning to head over there alone. I was the one who held him back. Now that you are here, 3 people have a much better shot at this. Regardless of the outcome. Thank you. He scrambles up from the floor and runs into the kitchen all mysteriously. Before long, a familiar aroma wafts out. Then he returns, carrying a large platter. 11 and I lean in to look. They are actually 3 steaming hot burgers. We all start laughing. How did you manage this? I grab one without hesitation. Back in the day, I used to love hot pot, but how could that work without the right setup? Now there is only a few cans of butane left. Hot pot's off the menu, but heating up some vacuum-sealed burgers is easy enough. He speaks with a touch of pride. Let us eat well. This afternoon we will plan, and we move first thing tomorrow morning. Even though it was just a single burger, it was the most filling and indulgent meal we would had in days. Xiaopeng tells us funny stories about customers at his escape room. For a fleeting moment, it feels like I have gone back to the past. Like we are just hanging out and eating at a friend's place. Nothing has changed. Everything is peaceful. We take a nap in the other bedroom, with total peace of mind. Before drifting off, I realize Xiaopeng made the right choice. Once the dust settles, 11 and I should also find a comfortable house, stock up on some supplies, and just spend the rest of our lives taking it easy. Following the plan from yesterday afternoon, we start preparing at the crack of dawn. Xiaopeng gives 11 and me a walkie-talkie each. He also replenishes our backpacks with water and food. Truth is, the 2 buildings are so close that we should not have to worry about not making it back. But just to be safe, we still pack 2 days worth of rations. Our broom handle is already trashed. Xiaopeng does not have any suitable weapons either. So today, we have to hit the hardware store at the complex entrance to see if we can find any handy tools to use as gear. Once everything is ready, Xiaopeng presses his ear against the security door for ages. Then he peers through the peephole for a while. Finally, he counts down with his fingers. Doors open. Go. There is a soft click as the latch releases. 11 and I quickly slip out the door. Still the same, he is in front, I am covering the rear. We edge cautiously toward the emergency exit. The hallway is still quite dark at this hour. We both switch on our flashlights. The ones who were chasing us that day are basically gone now, probably wandering on other floors. Experience from that day tells us they can't hold their ground on the stairs. They will definitely tumble down. So they are bound to be scattered on the landings and in the corridors. They can't get out either, because we locked the main entrance. The hallway here is shaped like a zigzag. The emergency exit is at the top left of the zigzag. Xiaopeng's place was on the bottom right. We rounded 2 corners. Finally, we spotted one of them wandering by the emergency exit. Its back was turned toward us. We crept up quietly. Then 11 made a sudden lunging move. He plunged the kitchen knife straight into its temple. He lowered the body gently to the ground. Aside from a look of pure disgust, he did not seem to have much of a reaction anymore. You see, we were gradually getting the hang of this. We entered the stairwell, pulling the fire door shut behind us. Using the flashlight, I looked down. The stairwell was silent. None of them were within sight. So we started heading down, moving much faster than we did on the way up. Reaching the fire door on the 10th floor, I peered through the crack in the door. shadows were faintly moving in the hallway. 11 pulled a bundle of thick hemp rope from his bag. Working together, we used the rope, tying the handles on both sides of the door firmly together. We had to minimize any safety risks in the stairwell. If Xiaopeng and Guizi ever felt like it, they could go floor by floor and clear out the entire building. Just like that, we smoothly tied up the fire doors, floor after floor. On the 5th and 3rd floors, we took out 2 more. Finally, we reached the 1st floor. Just as our experience suggested, they tended to tumble down the stairs. 4 of them were gathered inside the main entrance. One of them was still wearing pajamas. 11's face turned pale again. "What is wrong?" I asked him in a worried whisper. "That woman in the pajamas," he answered with a dry throat. "She lived next door to my parents. I saw her a few times when I came back from business trips." I did not know how to respond. I could only give him a pat on the back. They noticed us approaching and started snarling as they walked toward us, but they were tripped up by the stairs. They fell into a heap, still stretching out their arms trying to bite us. 11 and I stood on the stairs, bent down and finished them off with 2 stabs each. During this process, I felt like my heart had grown a thick callus. I felt almost nothing. I was gradually becoming able to stop associating them with human beings. It was as if we were 2 different species from birth. Enduring the foul stench, we dragged them out of the hallway. Then we shut the door. We pushed a trash can over to climb over the fence. The sun was not quite up yet. The morning breeze was pleasant and cool, carrying the scent of grass and soil from the green belt. We could finally breathe freely again. The SUV was still parked where we left it, though it was covered in fallen leaves. We climbed into the car, heading for the hardware store near the complex entrance. 11 drove all the way down the path, then turned right. Right turn. The road opened up instantly. More shops appeared on both sides, along with many abandoned cars and wandering figures. After driving for a few more minutes, the main gate of the complex finally came into view. It looked like someone had tried to block something from entering. The gates were tightly closed. A line of cars was jammed at the entrance. We tried not to imagine the horrific scene from that night. We quickly bypassed them. The hardware store was just ahead. 11 hit the gas and charged through. He knocked down 2 of them. Blood and gore splattered across the windshield. The car completely blocked the store entrance. I rushed inside the shop immediately. The hardware store was tiny. Our target was clear. Pry bars. In a place like this, they usually stand out. Within seconds, I spotted them. I lunged forward, grabbed a few at random, and bolted back to the car. Right then, the sound of the braking and the impact had already drawn them in. A few of them were frantically clawing at the windows. 11 slammed his foot on the gas, veering off into a narrow side alley. "This strategy's working," I said. "As long as we are fast enough, they won't be able to keep up." 11 replied, "We are low on fuel." Then he added, out of nowhere, "We will park the car just ahead of our original spot, right next to the building where Guizi is." As we were climbing over the fence, I switched on the walkie-talkie to call Guizi. "Guizi, we are heading your way now. Get ready." He responded instantly, "Copy that. I am all set." Sounds like he would been waiting quite a while. Guizi was in the unit just to the left of 11's parallel block. The hallway layout should be identical, though. 11 and I sheathed our knives and raised our pry bars. Having them in hand made me feel a lot more secure. The pry bars were sturdy enough. They had a good reach and packed a real punch when swung. With that peace of mind, our pace quickened significantly. It did not take long to reach his unit's entrance. I punched in the code, while 11 kept watch behind me. The moment the door swung open, we dashed into the stairwell without hesitation. First, we secured the fire exit on the ground floor. Then we began clearing our way up, floor by floor. Guizi lived on the 8th floor, much better than the 11th, but in this building's stairwell, more snarls and roars were echoing out. We did not dare lower our guard. When we hit the 5th floor, Guizi's voice crackled urgently through the walkie-talkie. "Where are you guys?" 11 and I jumped, startled by the sudden noise. I scrambled to shut the device off, cursing Guizi's entire bloodline in my head. The roaring was getting closer. It was getting louder and louder, first from the hallways, then from the floors above. Our minds went blank with panic. The second they appeared in our sight, we turned tail and scrambled back down the stairs. We did not even have time to close the door behind us. I wanted to charge back to Xiaopeng's building, but 11 grabbed me and headed straight for the fence. We climbed over, gasping for breath. He floored the gas, leaving that horde of snarling shadows in our dust. "We are not going back?" I asked, looking at his profile. "No," he said. For the first time, a cold, ruthless look crossed his face. He switched on the walkie-talkie. Xiaopeng's anxious voice came through. "Hello, hello. Are you guys okay?" "We are fine, but your friend did not follow the plan." We agreed he would only wait for us to contact him, but he could not keep his cool when it mattered most. We lured so many of them down there. We did our best. "From now on, you are on your own." "I am sorry." I picked up the walkie-talkie and continued. "Xiaopeng, this is not on 11. The front gate was open when we left. Most of the ones in the building should have cleared out. If you still want him to stay with you, maybe he will be okay by himself. The security doors at the bottom of the building. We locked them all as planned. Xiaopeng, thanks for saving us. I wish you, yeah, stay safe. That was the first story between us humans. After the world fell apart. But later, we managed to get 11's car back. We also scavenged plenty of gas and supplies from abandoned vehicles. Finally, we set off on the road to my hometown. We spent the whole day on the road today. By the time we checked into a guest house, I felt like my bones were about to fall apart. 11 was even more exhausted than me. He fell asleep the second his head hit the pillow. Lately, he has been wasting away right before my eyes. The rare smiles he shows are always forced. 11 did basically all the driving today. Our progress was much slower than expected, mainly because we could not take the highways. Most of the time, we were driving on rural backroads. In less than half a day, 11's originally white SUV had turned pitch black. Over the past few days, 11 and I have gradually developed our own system. When passing through towns, we would keep a sharp eye out for small supermarkets that looked safe. Even if we had enough supplies in the car, we would still stop to scavenge a bit. Pharmacies too. Besides first aid kits, we grabbed every antibiotic we could find, along with various common medicines. We agreed to avoid driving at night if possible. As soon as it got dark, we would look for a small family guest house. The distance between the two places is quite far, so crossing rivers and canals is unavoidable. In just this one day, we had to detour 3 times because of blocked bridges, and we had to get out and clear the road twice. According to the map, there is a very wide river on tomorrow's route. How the situation will be there, both 11 and I are a bit worried. This afternoon, we passed a temple. We got out, wanting to offer some incense. But before we even stepped inside, we heard it, that familiar guttural roar coming from behind the Buddha statue. We just gave a hurried bow at the entrance and left. Thinking back on it now, what were we even trying to pray for? To live or not to live? It is all down to luck. Man, I am so sleepy, so exhausted. Guess I will allow myself to be a bit lazy. I am injured. It happened yesterday while crossing a bridge. Yesterday morning, after we left the guest house, we drove for about 2 hours. I say about because 11 has already put his watch away. Time has become practically meaningless to us. Anyway, it was around mid-morning when we reached that unavoidable bridge. There was no sun today, just a few drops of rain now and then. The temperature was mild, a rare bit of decent weather. 11 found a suitable spot and parked the car. I grabbed 2 pairs of binoculars. I got out with him to scout the area. The bridge was long and stood high above the river surface. It was hard to imagine what kind of creatures would still be alive if they got trapped in the middle of this. Through the binoculars, we could already see a long chain of abandoned vehicles and countless them wandering on the bridge. What is the plan? I shifted anxiously on my tiptoes. Should we go check out the second or third bridge? The second bridge is in the downtown area. It will only be more congested. 11 shook his head. The third bridge is too far. Even if the roads are clear, it will add at least an hour to the trip. If that one's blocked too, we will end up having to take this one anyway. Then let us roll the dice. I swallowed hard. 11 nodded, a certain grit appearing in his eyes. Both of us had a bit of a gambling streak in our blood. Back when we were working, out of the whole project team, we were the 2 who loved to play the most. It was cards at every dinner, and dice at every KTV session. We never bet money, only meals. Either I owed him a dinner, or he owed me one. The tab was never truly settled. What are the stakes this time? I asked him. If we make it through, you are driving tomorrow, he said with a grin. Fair enough. Thinking about it, I suddenly felt a surge of adrenaline. We got back into the car and threw on our backpacks. We checked our fruit knives and flashlights, and kept the crowbars by our feet. This was our basic survival kit. Whenever we left the car, or even thought we might have to, we made sure we were fully geared up. Then, 11 maneuvered the car back to the foot of the bridge, and slowly started to drive up. At first, the abandoned cars were not too densely packed. There was still enough room for our car to navigate. I would frequently hop out to take down a few stragglers, just to make sure we would not get swarmed if we had to make a run for it. About 20 minutes later, the vehicles began to cluster. They got more and more crowded, until our car could barely squeeze through. Eventually, we had no choice but to ditch the car. Thinking about that carload of supplies, my heart ached and I winced in frustration. 11 took it even harder. Leaving the car meant saying a final goodbye to his pride and joy. The last physical link to his old life was being severed right here. We quietly climbed out of the car. 11 shut the door and locked it tight, carefully tucking the keys away in his backpack. What we did not realize at the time was that quite a few of them had been alerted by our noise, and were already wandering our way. They were just hidden by the rows of cars, so we did not notice them at first. Right then, it started to drizzle again, and the raindrops were getting heavier. There were raised sidewalks on both sides of the bridge. They had fewer obstacles, which made them ideal for moving fast. And so, we started jogging silently along the left side path, taking out a few stragglers as we went. When we reached roughly the middle of the bridge, a truck with its rear end forced onto the sidewalk blocked our way. Its front was wedged into the main lanes, sandwiched between two other cars. One wheel had smashed through the bridge railing and was dangling over the edge. Clearly, there had been a massive pileup here. The risk of weaving through the cars in the fast lanes was too high. The only way forward was to climb over the roofs. We backed up a little bit, stepped up from the curb onto the hood of a sedan, then moved onto its roof. From there, we hopped to the next one. Since the cars in this section were all jammed together, it was not too difficult. By now, the rain was coming down pretty hard. The drumming sound on the car roofs was becoming quite loud. We decided to push our luck a little. Before this, we did not dare make a single sound, so our progress had been incredibly slow. We did not choose to go around the front of the truck from the right. Instead, we climbed directly over the small car that was pinned under its tires. Because of the line of sight, I could not tell what the situation was on the other side of the truck. Therefore, I did not dare show myself recklessly. 11 is more agile than I am. He took the lead and climbed into the truck's cargo bed. As he reached out his hand to pull me up, he turned his head to take a look, and suddenly gasped in horror. "What is it?" I asked while climbing, but he immediately covered my mouth. When I steadied myself and looked ahead, I was frozen in shock too. They were packed like sardines in every gap between the vehicles, stretching all the way to the end of the bridge. Luckily, the rain became heavy and sudden. It seemed to make them lose their target. They were just wandering around aimlessly out of habit. I do not dare to imagine if it were not for this rain. What kind of scene would we be looking at? Perhaps the moment we climbed onto that big truck, we would have been torn to pieces already. But even so, this is still the toughest stretch of road we have faced so far. Atop the high cargo container, the two of us stood there, soaked to the bone, helplessly staring at the long line of abandoned cars and the murky river on both sides of the bridge, surging upstream in the heavy rain. 3 paths, 11 whispered close to my ear. The rain was so loud I could barely hear his voice. Option 1, stay on the rooftops. Option 2, head down to the sidewalk. Option 3, turn back. He put it simply, without any analysis. But we needed analysis. The sidewalk is the fastest way, but since the rain started, compared to the road ahead, there are more of them loitering there, whether on the left or the right. Staying on the rooftops would indeed let us pass over them, but we could not possibly go fast. Add to that the slippery rain. One slip and it is game over. Turning back was obviously the safest bet for our lives. However, that is just how humans are. The closer it gets to the wire, the more you want to gamble. Let us take the rooftops first. Wait until there are fewer of them on the sidewalk, then find a way down, I said to 11. He nodded, offering no objection. He led the way back from the container to the truck's cabin, then reached out to pull me again. We moved from the truck cabin down toward another car. The truck was very high. Because of the rain, getting down was harder than getting up. We finally managed to steady ourselves on the hood of a sedan, and while the 2 nearest zombies had not reacted yet, we scrambled toward the next vehicle. Just like that, we carefully and successfully cleared 4 cars. But on the 5th one, things went south. It was an SUV that had not even been registered yet. After being washed by the rain, the black paint had become slick and shiny. Maybe it was because the first few cars went too smoothly, or maybe the car was just too new, or maybe his legs just gave out. Whatever the reason, 11 slipped as he stepped from the roof to the rear of the car. I was holding his hand, preparing to move down, when his sudden jerk pulled me right down with him. Reacting quickly, I immediately grabbed the roof rack, but 11 still fell off the car. At the same time, the hoe at my waist caught at a nasty angle, slicing a long gash across my right arm. A surge of sharp pain hit me. Instinctively, I let go of 11's hand and pulled my arm back. Arg! I let out a muffled cry of pain, immediately clutching my right arm with my left hand. Blood gushed out from between my fingers. It dripped onto the car roof before being washed away by the rain. 11 scrambled up from the ground immediately. Before he could climb back onto the car, one of them grabbed onto him. He had no choice but to pull out his baton to strike back, but he was being forced further and further away from the car. Even in the pouring rain, I could smell the thick, metallic scent of my own blood. Them surrounding us began to stir, closing in. Forget about me, just run, I shouted to 11. I pushed myself up from the car roof, no longer caring about being stealthy. I just ran wherever there was a gap between the cars. My vision was a complete blur in the heavy rain. I had no idea how 11 was doing. In the chaos, hands were clawing at my ankles. I stumbled and crashed onto the sidewalk on the right, and then I just bolted. I think I took out a few of them along the way, but most of the time, I was just using using brute force to shoulder my way through. I do not know how long I ran for. All I could feel were waves of agony shooting through my right arm. I was running on empty, about to collapse. Yet the snarls behind me were getting louder and closer. Just as I was about to give up, and was ready to jump off the bridge, 11 grabbed me and shoved me into the car. He floored the gas, slamming into several of them, reversing, hitting them again and crushing them under the tires. Finally, he rammed a wreck out of the way, and we finally made it out of that hellhole. I had already lost a lot of blood, and with the impact of the collisions, my consciousness began to fade. I do not know what 11 was saying to me. When I woke up, I was already lying in this hotel room. My arm was wrapped in bandages, but it still felt like it was being ripped apart. "You are awake." He looked at me with concern, using a thermometer gun to check my temperature. "How long was I out?" I asked him, turning my head toward the window. It was dark outside. The rain seemed to have stopped only recently. Night just fell. "If you are up for it, hurry up and eat something. Then take these antibiotics." He handed me a piece of bread, 2 sausages and a marinated egg, plus a bottle of water and 3 capsules. "I cleaned your wound with alcohol and applied some iodine. While you were unconscious, I forced some powdered antibiotics down your throat, but the gash is too deep. It probably needs stitches. Once you are done eating, I will head to the nearby hospital to find a surgical kit." "Don't go." I interrupted him, stating firmly that the hospital was too dangerous. "Don't you dare go. I do not need stitches." But I said, "No means no. Just wrap it up well for me. It will heal even without stitches. At worst, it will just be a bit ugly and leave a big scar." I suddenly felt a surge of bravado, but what I said was the honest truth. There was no point in going on a suicide mission to a crowded place like a hospital. "I am sorry. If I had not slipped," he said guiltily, unable to look me in the eye. "Oh, shut it." I snapped at him, pretending to be annoyed, though a wave of warmth washed over my heart. "If you did it on purpose, get on your knees and apologize. If not, then just sit down and eat with me. Don't be such a nag. Hurry up and unwrap this for me. Can't you see I can't move my hand?" He let out a dry laugh. He sat down to help me tear open the bread bag, then picked up the water bottle and twisted off the cap. "Will it really heal on its own?" he asked again. "It should. I saw it on the internet once. You will just need to help me stabilize my arm later. Make a sling or something. I will try not to use my right arm so it can heal properly. As long as it does not get infected, I will be fine." After a long silence, I added another line. "Good thing I am a southpaw. Last night I crashed right after eating. Today, I spent the whole day drifting in and out of sleep." 11 stayed by my side the whole time, changing my bandages and checking my temperature. He said there was food in the guest house, so we did not need to head out to scavenge. By dusk, I was feeling much better. The fever had not returned either. The tension that had been locked on 11's face finally began to ease. Now, I am leaning against the bed. 11 is sitting on a chair nearby, reading a book. Everything is quiet and beautiful. I suddenly feel incredibly lucky. I am not alone in this. No matter what happens next, for each other's sake, we will definitely find a way to keep on living. We stayed in the small town for one more day. My arm does not hurt as much as it did at first. When changing the dressing, I can see a long, jagged gash, stained black from the layers of iodine, but it is no longer oozing fluid. It is already starting to heal up. Every time 11 changes my bandages, his face twists into a knot, as if he is the one who is actually hurt. To spare his feelings, I agreed to hit the road tomorrow, but in return he promised me he would drive me around the town today. Our previous bet was automatically called off. 11 took over the role of driver, without a single word of complaint. Having lost the car and our supplies, I felt really uneasy. So the two of us went on a proper scavenging run through the town. This is just a small town without any massive supermarkets, so the scavenging went relatively smoothly. First, we swapped our vehicle. The front of the car we drove back the other day was completely totaled. Covered in blood and mud, it was basically undrivable. We searched along the street where our guest house was located, and found a black SUV with the keys still in the ignition. The interior looked clean and tidy. 11 has a thing for these kinds of cars. They are perfect for long-distance hauls. I used to love those mini electric carts because they were so nimble. They are quiet to drive, but they can't take a hit. And since they are electric, they are pretty much useless in this world now. After picking the car, we started hitting the convenience stores one by one. 11 would not let me out of the car until the area was cleared. Only after he confirmed everything was safe would he let me join him in the shop to scavenge. We hit 4 supermarkets in total. The car was piled high with bread, milk, bottled water, and jerky, marinated eggs, sausages, Snickers, chocolate, and biscuits, as well as daily essentials. Stuff like soap, batteries, handkerchiefs, and tissues which take up way too much space. I even grabbed a few bags of spicy strips and potato chips to celebrate being survivors. Besides that, 11 also grabbed 2 sets of thick rubber raincoats, the kind used for working in the fields. He thinks that besides keeping us dry, they could provide some protection and prevent small scratches. We also visited a pharmacy. We restocked our bandages, alcohol, iodine, antibiotics, and cotton swabs. We also took some traditional anti-inflammatory medicine and 2 pairs of surgical gloves. I could tell 11 really wanted to find a surgical kit, but why would a pharmacy have one? He stubbornly dragged me to the town hospital's entrance to check it out, but the obvious, swarming danger inside quickly changed his mind. Finally, in a private clinic, he dug out a few expired suture kits. He stashed them away like they were precious treasures. In a sports brand store, we had a good look around. We were both still wearing the tracksuits we would brought for the business trip. They were already filthy, torn, and reeked. The shoes 11 was wearing were a spare pair from his car. They did not fit right. For long-distance trekking, we each got ourselves a pair of waterproof hiking boots. I stuck with a sports vest, and he stayed with his t-shirt. We swapped into fresh pants and socks. Thinking about durability and dirt, we all changed into military or camouflage gear. We each packed 2 changes of clothes and an extra pair of shoes, grabbed outdoor gloves, belts, sunglasses, and baseball caps, tucked away our fruit knives, orange pry bars, flashlights, and walkie-talkies. Everything else was stuffed into giant hiking backpacks. Finally, we picked up a 2-person travel tent. Only then did we leave, feeling satisfied. As we stepped out of the clothing store, I felt a rush of excitement from being fully geared up. The 2 of us look like tough survivors straight out of a movie right now. Well, if you ignore my arm hanging in a sling. Back at the hotel, I went to check the kitchen again. With 11's help, we cleared one out. He was still wearing his chef's whites. It looked like he had not planned on leaving at all. It made us feel a bit heavy-hearted. But when we saw the gas was still working, our spirits lifted again. We immediately cooked 2 packs of braised beef noodles and 2 packs of pickled cabbage beef noodles. We absolutely feasted. After this day, it felt like 11 and I had been healed in a way. After a whole day of traveling yesterday, we drove through the gates of my hometown this morning. Since yesterday, I have felt like I was being submerged in a thick mud of fear and anxiety. I could barely move, and today that feeling only grew stronger. It was about to turn into an overwhelming urge to run away. 11 noticed I was acting off. He kept trying to start a conversation with me, but my mouth felt like it was glued shut. I did not dare imagine what kind of scene I would find at home. The thought of just dying right here even crossed my mind. People are strange creatures. Bizarre thoughts pop up at the most inappropriate times. This city gate was restored on the foundation of the ancient ruins. It looks quite grand. There are 3 large arched gateways. After passing through the middle arch that connects to the highway, you can see the faux ancient canals, stone bridges, bell towers, and pagodas in the distance. They were all built recently for tourism. I have not been back for nearly a year. The town feels both familiar and alien. Many buildings from the 90s, marked for urban renewal, had the word demolish spray painted large on them. Keep going straight from the gate, take a turn, and you will reach Qingxi Alley, where my home is. The road gradually narrowed. Quite a few abandoned vehicles were parked along the way. It took us a long time to navigate through them. As the scenery on both sides became more familiar, my heart climbed higher and higher in my throat. I did not dare look at those wandering figures, yet I could not help but try to identify every decaying face I saw. Unlike the big city where 11 lives, in a small town like this, you know every single person living around you, even if you have not been back in a long time. The car pulled up onto a row of blue stones. To the right was the alley where I played and laughed growing up. I was practically shaking as I got out of the car. Geared up, crowbar in my left hand, I waited for 11 to lock the car and tell me which way to go. 11 stood by my side. Just follow the alley all the way in, I said. He nodded and took the lead. The alley is not wide, about enough for 5 people to walk abreast. This stretch before the bend. The homes are concentrated behind courtyard gates on the left. 4 or 5 households usually share one passage. On the right side of the alley is a blue brick wall, worn smooth by time, overgrown with moss and weeds. As we reached the second courtyard gate, we heard some movement. 11 raised his crowbar high in his right hand. His left hand reached out to close the gate. Before he could even touch the handle, something suddenly lunged out. It pinned him against the brick wall. Instinctively, I swung my crowbar at its head, but because of my weak grip, I failed to knock her down. She turned her head, and when I saw that face, I nearly jumped out of my skin. It was the grandmother from next door. Even though her face was already rotting, and her teeth were broken and missing, and only a few strands of hair remained on her head, I still recognized her instantly. She wobbled and lunged at me again, while a few pieces of candy fell out of her filthy pocket. I froze, paralyzed for a moment. I let her withered hands grab my shoulders, just as she was about to sink her teeth in. Suddenly, her head was pierced through. A few drops of blood splattered onto my face. Do you have a death wish or something? 11 growled in a low voice. She used to give me candy, I mumbled back. My voice was so faint I could barely hear it myself. 11 did not say anything else, just patted my left arm. He did not move, seemingly waiting for me to make a decision. I really did not want to take another step forward. Just tell me where it is, I will go check for you, 11 said. I shook my head, gritted my teeth, and kept walking. My heart was already in my throat. We passed 4 more courtyard gates. We followed the alley, turning right, then left, and the familiar iron gate appeared before my eyes. The gate was closed. I swallowed hard, and walked over. Knock, knock. I tapped on the gate. Then I leaned in close to listen for any movement inside. There was no sound. It was deathly quiet. Knock, knock, knock. I tapped again, whispering softly, "Dad, Mom, it is me." Still no movement. My chest tightened. I hurriedly knelt down, trying to peer through the gap at the bottom of the iron gate. I saw many flower pots. There was some blood on the ground, but no wandering figures in sight. "How's it looking?" 11 asked from above, his voice also laced with tension. "No good. I have to climb over." I stood up and prepared to scale the iron gate. "You want to break your arm? Let me." 11 was indeed quite agile. With a slight effort, he hoisted himself onto the gate, and easily flipped over to the other side. The moment he opened the gate from the inside, I rushed in. Everything was exactly as I remembered. 2 tiled houses and a flat-roofed building centered around a small courtyard. It was filled with flowers and plants, along with a small pond of goldfish. Because they had not been fed in a long time, the goldfish were dead. They floated belly up on the water, emitting a foul stench. Some of the leaves had withered and drooped from lack of water, while other hardier plants that did not need much care were still growing quite lushly. However, I was not in the mood for details. I pushed past them, and opened the door to the main house. The main house had 3 rooms, a living room, a study, and a bedroom. The moment I opened the door, a familiar scent hit me instantly. Items were scattered about in the living room. The bedroom was a mess, with clothes tossed haphazardly onto the bed. But inside the study, aside from a layer of dust, everything was perfectly in place. I ran over to the flat-roofed building. No one was in my bedroom or the kitchen. I only found a single note on my desk. "We are leaving." The handwriting was messy, looking like it had been left in a great hurry. Resting on top of it was my dad's old sandalwood bracelet. "What does this mean?" I slipped the bracelet onto my wrist and asked 11. I felt as if my brain were rusted shut. It was incredibly difficult to even think. By the look of things, they made it out safely. He crossed his arms, surveying the surroundings. "Look, there is no blood here. It is just a bit messy. They must have left in a real hurry. But where could they have gone?" When we entered the alley, I noticed something. There seemed to be fewer of them here than outside. Aside from that old lady we ran into, there are only a few wandering around in their own yards. 11 started analyzing the situation. He noted their hair was all gray, likely elderly folks who could not bear to leave or had trouble moving. But I think they probably did not even know where to go themselves. At least, not when they were leaving those notes. In a small town like yours, news might not have spread as fast as in the big cities. The panic probably was not as intense either. They might have waited until the government came to the rescue. 11's words finally put my mind at ease. I sank into the sofa, exhausted. For the next while, we huddled together inside the house. This place gave us an unprecedented sense of security and warmth. For the first time since the apocalypse began, we did things unrelated to survival. Watering the flowers, pulling weeds, and trimming the branches. We even buried the goldfish under the fig tree. We picked the ripe tomatoes Mom had grown in her spare time, along with cucumbers, eggplants, and green peppers. We steamed them with the cured meat Mom left behind. It was a truly wonderful meal. After all that, we tidied up the main house, locked the doors and windows, and finally retreated to my bedroom. Under the glow of an old kerosene lamp, we spent a peaceful night. Right now, I am leaning over the desk, writing today's diary entry. 11 is curled up on my bed, fast asleep, clutching a children's book. He looks a bit funny, but also kind of cute. The sandalwood bracelet gives off a pleasant, faint scent, making me feel exceptionally calm. I firmly believe that Mom and Dad must be eating well under some kind of protection, sleeping well, and aside from missing me, that they are healthy and safe from harm. One day, we will meet again. I hope by then, the world will have slowly started to heal. We decided to stay here for a few more days. As for what to do next, 11 and I have a difference of opinion. 11 suggests heading south to find a place like a manor, where we can grow some fruits and vegetables, and raise some poultry. He believes that they will rot faster in hotter temperatures. Eventually, they will lose the ability to move, and won't be a threat anymore. It is not that I disagree with him, but I still have this lingering hope of finding my parents. Yet I am at a total loss on how to even start looking. I am still keeping my phone safe, turning it on every few days. I do not really expect the vanished signals to reappear. It is just that I can't let go of my old life. We went out for a stroll today. Judging by how we have been lately, it is clear neither of us can sit still for long. Life in the apocalypse is much duller than before. No TV, no scrolling through the web or playing games. Aside from reading, there is almost nothing to do. So, we do not think we can spend our lives just scavenging for supplies. We need need to plant something, at the very least. I was also secretly wondering if we should find a couple more people to join us. At least we could have gathered around a table for some poker or mahjong. This time when we headed out, we still brought our full gear along. We are always prepared for the possibility of never coming back. We hit up a few mini-marts, but when we got inside, we found they would already been picked clean. Since the outbreak started, we have consistently given large commercial stores a wide berth. Even though they mean a massive haul of supplies, they also mean double the danger. Neither of us thought that two out-of-shape office workers like us could make it out in one piece from those roamers. I do not have much time left to hesitate. We need to establish our own sustainable way of life before the world's remaining resources are all carved up. Let us head out of the city and take a look, I said. Turn the car around and drive out through the city gates. The previous road was lined with shops. My home in the old district is not exactly the economic hub, while the development zone outside the city is in the process of development. Government departments and commercial centers have all moved away. The old city is like a jar of wine aged for many years, gradually being forgotten. Can you pull over at the entrance for a second? I want to see something. I pointed toward an open area ahead. 11 steered the car over and stopped by the electric retractable gate. Your high school? He asked. Yeah. The door to the school's security booth was open. Nobody inside. I got out of the car and walked into the booth. After 11 repeatedly confirmed there was no danger, he followed me inside. A few courier packages were scattered around this small space, waiting for owners who would never show up. Several documents were spread across the desk. I picked up a page and started reading. It turned out to be the work schedule for the summer break. It is July now. Usually, the college entrance exam results would be out by now, right? I suddenly remembered. Yeah. 11 nodded. The early admission batch should have received their acceptance letters by now. We both let out a long synchronized sigh. Everything went down on a night at the end of June. Only the boarding students would have been sleeping in the dorms. I pointed at the empty sports field and said, look, that is why the field is deserted. The teaching buildings should be empty too. Let us drive in and take a look. Okay. If it looks dicey, we will just drive straight out. 11 remained silent, but I could tell he really wanted to go in too. He hesitated for a moment, then walked toward the electric retractable gate. I hurried to catch up, and together we pushed it open with all our might. Everything on campus was so familiar, it was heartbreaking. The grass in the middle of the synthetic track was no longer neat. Weeds were overgrown, and some wild flowers had even started to bloom. On the cement benches by the basketball court, there were still a few drink bottles and a school uniform jacket. The flag on the high pole had not been lowered. That splash of red was still fluttering in the wind against the sky. We circled the campus a few times, and finally stopped in front of the teaching building. There really was no one around. It was dead quiet inside the building. We did not dare go upstairs, so we just wandered along the ground floor corridor. Through the glass, we looked at those desks piled high with books in the 10th grade classrooms, and the blackboard displays frozen in June. This place, 11 came to a halt in front of one of the windows. He gave it a gentle nudge. To our surprise, it swung right open. Some careless student must have forgotten to lock it. He nimbly hopped inside, then reached back out to give me a hand. We eventually took 2 seats in the middle of the 4th row. We sat there in silence, staring at the empty blackboard. For a split second, it felt like I was back in a high school classroom. The desk mate to my left would slide over a piece of paper with the 5 in a row game we used to play during lessons drawn on it. A student in the front row would purposely drop a pen, and while picking it up, sneak a piece of chocolate into their mouth. And if I just turned my head, I would see my longtime crush, lost in a daydream while staring at the board. Are they all doing okay? I turned to look at 11. A faint smile was creeping onto the corners of his mouth. Clink. A tiny sharp sound broke our train of thought. 11 and I instinctively grabbed our clubs, staring at the window in total high alert. A long moment passed. The expected snarling never came. 11 and I exchanged a suspicious look. Hello, 11 whispered. Thud. A middle-aged man in his 50s emerged from behind the glass, looking incredibly awkward. He wore glasses, his face haggard and gaunt, with graying hair. He had a scholarly air about him. I am so sorry. I thought you were those things. He scratched his head sheepishly, dropping the brick he was holding. Then he straightened out his polo shirt. Don't be scared. I am a teacher here. A summer breeze blew through the bushes outside the classroom, making a rustling sound. The 3 of us sat by the flower bed, eating food from the car, just talking. We told him everything that had happened on the road. Before we knew it, All three of us had watery eyes. "You are the first living souls I have encountered in this world," the teacher said, his voice raspy. "What exactly happened at the school?" I asked him. "I was on duty that night." He stared at the water in his hand, as if it were a glass of strong liquor. "The security guard and I had finished our rounds, and were getting ready to sleep in the duty room. Suddenly, news about some infectious disease started blowing up my phone. At the same time, screams erupted from the dorm building. The commotion just kept getting louder. As soon as I heard it, I rushed over there. When I passed the security booth, he paused for a moment, then continued, "Those things, they dragged the guard out. There is a residential area across from our school. So many people were running into the streets. It was total chaos. There was blood everywhere. I was worried about my students. So I did not stop. The dorm doors were not locked yet back then. I thought staying inside was the safest bet. I started making calls, telling the teachers inside about the situation out here, and pleading with them not to come out, no matter what. And that is when I found out. The screaming from earlier was because some students had snuck phones in. They saw the news flooding the internet, and were making a scene, demanding to go home. But staying put was the only safe thing to do." "So what happened after that?" 11 asked. "Later, I went to check if the school's back gate was locked properly. Someone must have climbed in through the front gate looking for shelter then. Maybe a teacher in the dormitory was soft-hearted and let them in. I never expected that person to. By the time I got back inside the dormitory, it was all ready." The teacher's voice gradually trailed off. He held his head, shaking it constantly, trying desperately to erase those memories. "Then why did not you leave after that?" Seeing things were taking a turn for the worse, I quickly tried to change the subject. "Oh, honestly, I do not have long to live anyway." He looked up with a bitter smile. "I already have cancer, and I am all alone. Going anywhere else would be pointless. I would rather just wait for the end here on campus. Relatively speaking, it is a good place to rest in peace." I patted his shoulder sympathetically, not knowing how to comfort him for a moment. "You have not stepped foot outside at all. How have you been getting by all these days?" 11 asked again. "There is a small shop in the school not far from the duty room. The supplies in there are enough to last me a while. I have everything I need here. When I am bored, I go to the library to read, or head to the playground to play ball and jog. I can even wander around the teaching building. I still go to the classrooms to give lessons, pretending the students are still there, just to finish this semester's teaching plan." In my mind, a vivid image surfaced of him facing empty desks, lecturing all by himself. A wave of sorrow washed over my heart. "You could come with us, teacher." 11 looked at me, and I nodded, but the teacher firmly refused. "My body can't handle the journey anymore, and I do not want to leave this place I have guarded my whole life. Anyway, where are you two planning to go next? Maybe find a suitable place to settle down, or maybe go look for my parents." "I have not really decided yet," I replied. He fell silent for a long time. Finally, he just said, "Cherish the people beside you." I felt like I was seeing my old homeroom teacher from 10 years ago, giving his gentle guidance. On the way back, I finally made a decision. I want to turn that retractable gate into a solid wall. Then we won't have to fear them anymore. I blurted it out to 11 without much thought. His gaze went from confusion to realization. In the end, he nodded vigorously. "Okay, can I even make it out of here alive? Should I climb higher? Is the 5th floor enough? Maybe I should just go to the rooftop. It should be quicker that way." How did we end up in such a state? I thought we could follow the plan and reach the coast smoothly. To find a school, farm on the football field and raise chickens by the track. Read in the study room and push some beds together in the dorm. Play some ball, play some mahjong, and just soak up the sun outside. But it is all over before it even began. We were just too naive, far too naive. I am not dead yet. Just exhausted. I am feeling a bit better today than yesterday. Tomorrow, I will find a way out. Early yesterday, we left the lock behind. The teacher's words made me realize something. I am not just living for myself. I am living for my parents and for 11. So I can't be selfish. The only thing we must do is keep each other safe. That will be my entire reason for surviving. The afternoon before last, 11 and I took out the 2 maps we scored from the newsstand. We did some detailed planning on the main routes again. This time, we have prepared 2 routes. One is the same as before, taking the main roads with towns as supply stations. We should be able to reach the southern coastal areas within about a week. The other route is our backup plan. It still follows the main roads, but uses the suburbs as supply stations. The reason I planned a second route is that the supplies we can scavenge in small towns will only get scarcer. Everything went smoothly during the day. 11 took the wheel, while I studied the books on farming and livestock I would found in the bookstore. 10 days into the apocalypse. Their numbers are growing. They are starting to gather in hordes. When passing through 2 intersections, we had to hide in the car, waiting for them to snarl and wander past. By the time evening rolled around, around. We finally reached today's supply station. It is a small town on the edge of the city, not as remote as some places. There are plenty of malls and supermarkets. After a quick scavenge, we managed to bag 2 cans of gasoline. Then we prepared to find a nearby motel to rest. The sun had pretty much dipped below the horizon by then, leaving only a faint afterglow on the skyline. We had to pick up the pace to settle in before it got pitch black. We checked 3 motels, 2 were locked tight, and 1 was deathly dangerous. This situation was making us increasingly edgy, but the more you rush, the more things go wrong. We kept driving toward the east side of the town, until we spotted a mid-range hotel. 11 pulled the car over. It was completely dark now. We switched on our flashlights and grabbed our gear, ready to clear a room on the first floor. It was clearly a modern hotel that had not been open long, though it was already gathering quite a bit of dust. It still looked simple yet sophisticated. The lobby was carpeted, set up with small reading nooks. A row of shelves full of plants separated it from the waiting area. Once we confirmed there was no immediate danger, I slipped behind the front desk to look for a master key card. 11 stood watch halfway down the hall toward the guest rooms. The drawers at the desk had not even been locked in the rush. Inside was a jumbled mess of cards. I rummaged through them for a while, but I could not tell which one was the master key, so I filtered out the coffee-colored ones. Since there were too many and they did not look right, I kept only 4 or 5 red cards. With the cards and flashlight in my right hand, and my crowbar in my left, I signaled to 11 with a nod. The 2 of us crept toward the guest rooms. The elevator bank was right at the entrance to the hallway. It looked abandoned now. Some everyday items were scattered on the floor, but thankfully there were no bloodstains. We peeked around the corner from the lobby into the hallway, checking the situation with our flashlights. The corridor was silent. A laundry cart was tilted in the middle, splitting the space into 2 sections. We quietly hunched over and moved inside. Our hiking boots on the carpet hardly made a sound. After confirming the 4 doors ahead were all closed, we stopped at the first door. 11 took his position as lookout again. I leaned down and tried the first MasterCard. No response on the first, nor the second. The third one failed too. On the 4th try, the door finally gave a soft beep. I let out a sigh of relief, nodded to 11, then slowly pressed down the handle, carefully pushing open the heavy door. Just as I was about to step inside, a rotting face suddenly appeared right in front of me. Startled, I let out an instinctive yelp. It grabbed my left arm. 11 rushed over to help, but the door swung back, getting jammed by the thing, so we could not push it open. I struggled with everything I had. My right hand had to keep bracing against the door, to prevent my arm from being snapped clean off. 11 pulled out a fruit knife, trying to give his head a warm welcome through the crack in the door. But no matter how he angled it, he could not get a clean shot. One swipe even managed to slice my skin, making me let out an even more pathetic scream. It looked like he was about to sink his teeth into my arm any second. Deep within the hotel, it felt as if something else was being woken up. Our panic started to redline. Finally, 11 just backed up a few steps. He took a sudden, violent sprint, and slammed his entire body weight against the door. Under the force of that impact, the door finally burst open. 11 and I went tumbling headfirst into the room. Only then did we realize there was not just one inside. They had all crowded at the entrance, which is why the door would not budge. A massive wave of terror washed over me. 11 and I did not stop to think. We scrambled up and bolted back out the door. The hotel was pitched in total darkness. The flashlight beam swung wildly, blurring everything in sight. And because of the fall, we had completely lost our sense of direction. After a frantic, blind sprint, I had absolutely no idea where I was, and 11 was nowhere to be seen. He would vanished long ago. The sounds of snarling still echoed from all around. Everywhere I looked, there were doors, and more doors. I was on the verge of a total breakdown. The only thought in my head was, do not stop. I must have run up and down countless flights of stairs, and passed through several heavy sets of double doors. I could hear my own footsteps and ragged breathing echoing in the unfamiliar space. Every hair on my body stood on end from the hissing right behind me and the inescapable darkness. I do not know how much time passed, until things finally, gradually, began to quiet down. Once my brain finally started functioning again, I realized I had ended up inside a massive shopping mall. I did my best to keep my fear in check, and ducked into a small clothing store. I felt my way into a fitting room. After locking the door, I collapsed to the floor and began to sob silently. Both of my arms were throbbing in pain. My left arm had a few scratches on top of that knife wound. I must have gotten them during that struggle earlier. I had no idea if any of the virus that triggers the turn had gotten into them. Thinking of 11 made the pain even harder to bear. Tears streaming down my face, I pulled the first aid kit out of my bag. I used alcohol to wipe down the wounds and the surrounding skin. Then I applied some iodine. Fortunately, the wounds were not deep, so I did not bother with gauze. I just swallowed 2 antibiotic pills for good measure. Once that was done, I stepped out of the fitting room. I grabbed a huge pile of clothes from nearby and brought them back. I was making myself a little nest. At that moment, I was both hopeless and exhausted. I did not even have the energy to worry if them were nearby. I just curled up in the middle of that pile of clothes. I turned on the walkie-talkie. I kept trying to reach 11, but there was only dead silence. I looked at my diary, wanting to record something, but I felt only despair. I do not even know what time it was when I finally drifted into a heavy sleep. Waking up the next morning, I felt an unprecedented level of fatigue. It was as if every bone in my body had been dismantled, and then crudely cobbled back together. I forced myself to eat a little something. I tried to contact 11 again, but still no luck. Maybe it was the shock to my system, but I fell back asleep. I did not fully wake up until nearly noon. I stood up. I looked up and down from the escalator near the clothing store. I realized I was on the 3rd floor of the mall. This place was just your average commercial plaza. The 4th floor was the food court. The 5th floor was the cinema and some entertainment venues. The 2nd and 3rd floors were all clothes and shoes. The 1st floor was skincare and cosmetics. I tried to retrace the path I had taken last night, but I could not find it for the life of me. I almost got myself lost again. The hotel probably occupied one corner of the mall building. I must have blundered my way through and found the corridor connecting the two places. Suddenly, a long-forgotten wave of dizziness hit me. I quickly shoved a piece of candy into my mouth, just sat there on the spot, waiting for it to pass. The food in my backpack could stave off hunger, but it could not keep my blood sugar stable. The scene before my eyes finally stopped spinning and became clear again. I crawled back up, my legs shaking like leaves, and made my way from the elevator up to the 5th floor. Maybe because the mall shops were closed for the night, there was not much danger inside. The cinema's main gate was pulled shut, but right next to it was a small jerky shop. It was not locked. I walked in and sat down. I ate some smoked meat that did not look like it had gone bad, then grabbed some packaged jerky and water from the shelves. Finally, I felt some strength returning to my body. Just as I was getting ready to leave the mall, the sky outside began to darken again. A surge of terror instantly crawled up from the bottom of my heart. I went back to that tiny fitting room and curled up amidst the piles of clothes. Please, just wait for me a little longer. I have a fever. I have not fully recovered yet. It started the night before last. I felt waves of cold shivering through my body. I thought it was just the nighttime chill. At the time, I just ran out of the fitting room, grabbed more clothes to huddle under, came back, and drifted into a hazy sleep again. When I woke up yesterday morning, I felt top-heavy and lightheaded. The whole world was spinning. So I pulled out the thermometer gun to check my temperature. 38.6 degrees Celsius. God damn it. I checked the wounds on my arms again. They did not look infected, but I could not be sure if the virus had snuck in. I dug out all the medicine from my backpack. Only 4 tablets of amoxicillin and a pack of cold capsules were left, barely enough for 2 doses. I chugged half a bottle of water, took half of the remaining meds, and crawled back into the pile of clothes. I pulled out the map, wanting to study the route to the town intersection, but immediately felt a bout of vertigo and had to give up. By yesterday evening, not only did my temperature not drop, it actually spiked higher. I was almost certain I was about to turn. Despair hit me like a ton of bricks. I had already given up on the plan to find 11. Staying here is fine. Even if I die, I do not want to go around biting people. I wanted to cry, but I was too weak to even shed a tear. My body felt so cold, so painful. The memories after that are a blurred mess. It felt like I was back in front of the computer, writing an IPO proposal for a client, but my brain was not working right. No matter what I wrote, it was garbage. The boss looked furious, adding countless red marks to the Word document. I could only keep revising and revising. The moment I woke up this morning, I instinctively reached for my phone. I fumbled around for ages but could not find it. When I opened my eyes, I remembered it is the apocalypse. Checked my temp, 37.8 degrees Celsius. Things are looking up. I do not feel hungry, but to recover as fast as possible, I finished the last bag of biscuits and some meds. Only 1 dose left. After taking them, I started packing my things. I need to get out of here, fast. Something fell out from the messy pile of clothes. My head felt dizzy again. I steadied my head and went to pick it up. Now I know why I pulled through. The ibuprofen chewables at the bottom of the bag. I must have dug them out without even realizing it. I would been carrying it with me since before the world ended. It was medicine I used to ease my migraines. In my days, I popped 2 pills. I never expected they would actually pull me back from the brink of death. I threw on a denim jacket I had with me, slung on my pack, grabbed my gear, and shakily forced myself to stand. Just that simple bit of packing left me drenched in a cold sweat. Leaning against the wall for support, I inched my way toward the mall's escalator. My legs felt like wet noodles, shaking violently with every move. Plus, the escalator steps were higher than normal ones. It took an eternity just to finally make it down to the ground floor lobby. The moment both feet finally touched flat ground, I collapsed right there with a heavy thud. I rested for a good while before I started feeling slightly better. The sun outside was like a blazing furnace. Under its baking heat, the temperature inside the mall was climbing steadily. Because I was so physically weak, I did not actually feel the heat. The problem now was, I had to find something to smash the glass door if I wanted to get out. I had a baton on hand, but I did not have the strength to use it. I stared blankly at the customer service desk ahead. There was a tall round stool over there. Maybe I could hurl that through. I crawled up, swallowed hard, closed my eyes for a second to steady myself, and pushed forward. After a huge struggle, I finally reached the stool. Like a walking corpse, I wobbled and dragged it toward the main entrance. Luckily, the bottom of the stool was padded with soft leather, so it did not make a sound as it rubbed against the floor tiles. By the time I finally reached the door, I felt like I was on the verge of total collapse. I felt like I was about to pass out. I slumped down again, leaning against the door. I gulped down some water. While resting, I pulled out the baton and tried tapping it against the glass door. It made a dull thumping sound. It was not too loud. Then I stood up, grabbed the metal base of the stool with both hands, and let it fly. Clang, the stool slammed into the door, making a terrifyingly sharp crack. Before bouncing back onto the floor, I quickly whipped my head around to look back into the mall. There did not seem to be any movement. I leaned in to check the damage. Turns out there was not even a scratch on the glass. I tried a few more times, but still made zero progress. Finally, in a fit of desperation, I snatched up the baton to smash the glass. But I was so weak, I nearly face-planted right into the door myself. Just as I was leaning on the baton, gasping for air, a small van suddenly appeared outside the mall doors. Someone scrambled out of the car and came rushing over. They were waving their hands at me frantically, with the sun at their back, and since I was not wearing sunglasses, I could not make out their face. I could not hear what they were shouting, either. Only when he ran right up to the door did I see it was a young guy with a crew cut. He looked terrified, pointing urgently behind me. I spun around, and in a panic, I immediately grabbed the baton and started smashing the glass like my life depended on it. I do not know when they would arrive, but the noise I would made had drawn them out. 4 or 5 of those things were wandering from the second floor toward me. They were already very close to the escalator. 11. This time I am really toast. He found 2 bricks from somewhere, getting ready to smash the door with everything he had. I hurried to back away. I kept an eye on the second floor, ready to fight for my life at any moment. Clink. The brick slammed into the glass, leaving a heavy dent. Finally, cracks began to spiderweb across the surface. The closest one behind me had already nearly reached the escalator. Clink, clink, clink. The buzz-cut youth hammered away relentlessly. He hurled 1 brick, then a second, then scrambled to retrieve the first to keep smashing. The fractures in the glass multiplied. Suddenly, a series of crashes erupted behind me. That thing at the top of the escalator came tumbling down. The sharp edges of the steps shredded its flesh. It was like a wet mop hitting the floor, leaving a gruesome trail of blood everywhere. Sprang my nausea. I rushed forward and bashed its head in. Then I scrambled back, terrified a second one would roll down and crush me. Shatter. The sound of breaking glass finally rang out behind me. At the same time, the ones upstairs missed their footing on the stairs, colliding with each other as they tumbled down. They were just starting to struggle back up. Move, move. The youth kicked away the shards remaining in the doorframe, shouting at me to hurry. Before I could even step through, he grabbed my arm, yanked me out of the mall, and sprinted toward a van. Seeing this, his companion dived into the passenger seat and slammed the door shut. Before I could even get steady, the driver cursed and floored the accelerator. We plowed through several shadows, speeding away into the distance. I looked out the rear window and saw a massive horde chasing us, refusing to give up. There are so many of them. What did you expect? The buzz-cut youth panted beside me. His face was flushed red, dripping with sweat. He glared at me fiercely, while pulling a bottle of water from under the seat to drink. Only then did the fear truly sink in. My illness flared up again. My head began to spin heavily, and I involuntarily slumped down. Thank you, I heard myself whisper. Hey. What is wrong with you? Hey. I was saved. My saviors were 3 young guys. The buzz-cut one who smashed the glass is Bipey. The chubby one on lookout is Dare. The driver with glasses and a face full of acne is Bansy. These are all nicknames they have picked up over the years. They sound more intimate and natural than their real names. They have set up a base and stockpiled a mountain of supplies, planning to live out the rest of their days there. The so-called base is a 4S store on the edge of the city. When we first arrived at this camp, I thought it was a bit haphazard, but I quickly changed my mind and came to thoroughly agree with their setup. They cleared out all 3 floors. The first floor is for quarantine and parking. The second floor is the living area. The third floor is for supplies and the fire exit. The stairs from the first to the second floor were completely sealed off with cement. They left only a small opening to go up and down. An RV is parked directly beneath that opening. A ladder is attached to the ceiling, reaching down perfectly to the roof of the RV. The design is truly brilliant. It was my idea. Even if the first floor gets overrun, they still won't be able to get up here, Bipey said, sounding very proud of himself. When that happens, we can just hole up on the second floor. We can drop into the RV through the sunroof and drive away. Or we can head up to the third floor to reach the roof, and then use the fire escape to bail out. You guys are definitely survivors, I said. I marveled at their setup with genuine sincerity. Once I climbed the ladder from the RV roof to the second floor, I became even more convinced that these 3 would be just fine. The second floor was originally a showroom for the 4S store. Now, within this massive space, half of it was used for stockpiling supplies, while the other half served as the living area. The 4S store's decor was bright and luxurious. The area around the service counter had been turned into a dining and reading nook. At the far end of the floor, there was a sleeping quarters with 3 large tents. There was a walk-in closet area with 3 big garment racks, and even a weapons rack hung with bows, arrows, and blades. And in the supply zone, crates of instant noodles, ham sausages, bread, milk, and beef jerky, along with canned goods, toilet paper, and so on, were stacked all the way from the floor tiles to the ceiling. Good lord, did you guys loot an entire hypermarket? I was floored. Oh, that is not even all of it, Dare said with a grin behind me, his cheeks bunching up as he smiled. The floor above is full, too. We basically cleaned out a few supermarkets. Haha. Banzi has some serious OCD. Everything has to be categorized, stacked neatly and perfectly, or he is not happy. Bipey teased him with a nudge. Banzi, deadpan as ever, just rolled his eyes at him. But it definitely has its perks. It makes finding things very convenient. I was still running a low fever at the time, feeling weak and shaky. Luckily, medicine was plentiful here. The 3 guys were all very generous and welcoming. They found a tent from the inventory for me. Inside, there was some play money. We can use this as currency, Banzi replied. He started unboxing the game. I stared at him in surprise. I thought you would be the one to object. No way he would object. This was actually his idea. Bipey began shuffling the mahjong tiles. Don't let his serious face fool you. He is full of mischief on the inside. Banzi kept his face straight, pulling the paper bills out of the Monopoly set. He dealt 71,000 to each person. I found it hilarious, but I was afraid laughing out loud would be rude, so I did my best to hold it in. After a few rounds of mahjong, I got the gist of how they got their nicknames. Banzi was obvious enough, stiff as a board. Bipey treated the white dragon tile as his lucky charm. He would beam with joy every time he drew it. As for Dare, it is because he is always getting called out for being a blockhead. Blockhead. How did you guys meet? I asked while drawing a tile. Outside, it started to rain, making the weather feel a bit more refreshing. Banzi and I knew each other before. I was a delivery guy. This guy was a college student. Ordered takeout every single meal. After a while, we just became familiar faces. That night, he ordered luosafen in the middle of the night. Just as I got to the school gate, all hell broke loose. He could not get back to his dorm, so we just had to make do and stick together. Banzi discarded a 90,000 tile, which was exactly what Bipey needed to win the hand. We were the ones who saved Dare. This guy is not the brightest bulb in the box. When he looks for food, he heads straight into dead ends. Hey, did not you say it yourself? Dare gave Bipey a kick under the table, yet his eyes remained glued to his own tiles. My brain works just fine, thank you very much. If I had not been cornered by 6 or 7 of them, I would not have needed your help at all. He discarded a 1-dot tile. They used a portable stove to boil water for me again. 2 days later, I was feeling much better, and I started pondering how to get in touch with 11. This afternoon, thunder began to roll outside. Bipey excitedly threw open all the windows. This place only has one flaw. Because of the glass curtain walls, it gets incredibly stuffy and hot inside. Luckily, while they were scavenging, they brought back quite a few battery-powered fans. Otherwise, it would have been unbearable. The moment the windows opened, a gust of cool air rushed in. Everyone felt a wave of relief. Dare suddenly had an epiphany. He ran over to the supplies area and started rummaging through everything. Finally, he came back grinning ear to ear, holding a brand new mahjong set. Before I could even react, Bipey pushed me down onto a chair at the 4S store reception desk. The three of them looked like they had been bored out of their minds for ages, rubbing their palms together in anticipation. Hey, is not playing mahjong going to make too much noise? I looked out at the street through the glass with concern. It is fine, Bipey said with a dismissive wave. The soundproofing here is solid. Plus, it is thundering outside. And with the security features we have got, what the hell is there to be afraid of? But do not you want to find your best bud? Bipey said with a mischievous smirk. If you win this game today, we will help you look for him. I am in. We will help you look. Dare chimed in, joining the fun. Banzi frowned and did not say a word. He simply got up and left the table. He looked like he did not approve of the idea. Worried, I shot a meaningful look at Bipey, but he just smiled and winked at me, busy with Dare unwrapping the mahjong tiles. A moment later, Banzi returned. He tossed a Monopoly board game onto the table. I did not quite catch his meaning. Banzi gave it a push, winning the hand. Holy crap, Dare shouted in shock. So, once you actually find 11, what is the game plan? Bipey asked. Head south. Find a school near the coast, I guess. Grow some vegetables, raise some chickens, that kind of thing. I replied honestly. The three of them exchanged glances. Bipey followed up with another question. You actually know how to farm? I used to watch my parents do it. Shouldn't be rocket science. I have been reading up on it lately, too. Kong, I will take that east wind. I laid out the 4 identical tiles in front of me, then drew a replacement tile from the back of the wall. And that is a win on Kong. The three guys forced a bitter smile. They started reaching for their wallets. Haven't you guys ever thought about farming? Surviving just by scavenging is not a long-term solution, is it? I asked while collecting my winnings. Even if we do not run out, the stuff will expire. Our bodies won't be able to take it. For 3 rough guys like us, this is enough for now. Who knows if we will even live long enough for that to matter. Unless... Dare started to say something, but then hesitated. How about you stay here? We can all team up together. Bipey picked up the conversation, staring at me intently. His expression was full of urgency. Look, we have got plenty of supplies. Our camp is absolutely secure. You can even grow vegetables on the roof. If you stay, we can play cards together too. I think that last part was your real point. I ruthlessly called him out. Bipey gave a sheepish grin. Aren't you afraid of someone eating into your food stash? Is the output worth the investment? Besides, you know how to farm. Then 11 should stay with us too. Obviously, we will have a backup player for our card games. It is even better if he does not know how to play. He can just serve us tea and water. Regardless, thank you. When it was just 11 and me, it really was quite lonely. Maybe staying here will make things a bit more cheerful. It is nothing. Now all we are missing is a doctor, Bipey said with satisfaction. If we could find one to bring back, it would be perfect. Ideally, a general practitioner. Dare added, the kind who knows both Eastern and Western medicine. Dare, what kind of daydream are you having? Just shut up and play your cards. Bipey gave Dare a kick under the table. Banzi nodded solemnly. I could not help it anymore. I burst out laughing. This card game lasted until nightfall. We only stopped when we could not see the cards anymore. Dare actually wanted to light some candles and keep going. He is the definition of terrible player with a gambling addiction. I went into the supply area. I grabbed 4 packs of pre-made Italian meat sauce pasta. I turned on the portable stove and cooked a portion for everyone. The 3 of them ate, while showering me with praise. I realized then, even though they had hauled back a massive amount of stuff, they were incredibly lazy. They could not be bothered to make anything that required boiling water. Before this meal, they were living on instant noodles and self-heating hot pots. They would not lift a finger unless it was a last resort. After dinner, the 4 of us took flashlights over to the map. We began planning the route. I lost quite a bit during the card game this afternoon, but they still took the initiative to suggest going out tomorrow. To go look for 11 tomorrow. The 4S store was not too far from the town where 11 and I got separated. After some discussion, we decided to split into 2 groups, to check both ends of our meeting point at the fork. If we can't find him, we will leave a message for 11. Then they started packing their gear. Banzi even went upstairs to get 4 canisters of pepper spray. By now, the thunder had stopped. The rain was gradually letting up. Amidst the busy work and bickering, I felt my heart slowly returning to a state of peace. The massive emptiness was gradually being filled by something. 11, tell me, have we already started getting used to all this? In the evening, Dare and Banzi came back fuming. Damn it, if I ever run into them again, I am going to kill those bastards. What happened? Bipey looked confused. Did you run into a bunch of them? Bipey and I did not find much today. We had returned to the camp early. When they came back, we were practicing archery against a target. The hell with the zombies. We ran into some real scumbags. Dare was exploding with rage, and he refused to explain it properly. Bipey and I turned to watch Banzi as he quietly unloaded the gear. This morning, we went to the final rendezvous point as planned. It was the intersection on the east side of the bridge. Banzi saw the questioning look in our eyes. He frowned and began to give us an update. There are not many houses in that area. We circled around a few times, and we checked carefully for any signs of life. In the end, we did not find anything, so we used spray paint on the houses and cars to leave a message for 11. Just as we were about to head out, Dare spotted a supermarket not too far away. He wanted to grab some supplies on the way back. The location of that supermarket was pretty tucked away. Surprisingly, it had not been looted yet. But while we were hauling water out of the store, 3 men walked in, and 1 woman, 4 absolute scumbags. Yeah, as soon as they came in, they pointed knives at us. They said the supermarket was on their turf, and told us to get lost. Then what, did they hurt you guys? Bipey anxiously pulled Banzi closer, checking him for any injuries. No. At first, we tried to reason with them, or at least suggested we split the supplies, but they would not listen at all. They told us to beat it immediately, or else they would kill us. They even said, anyone who did not listen before is already dead. I saw things were going south, so I pulled Dare away and we left. Why did you have to drag me out of there? I might have been able to take them on. Dare chimed in, sticking his neck out defiantly. Stealing other people's supplies. That is a classic move, and I know where they live. Just let it go, I said, trying to keep the peace. I placed a hand on his shoulder. Don't waste your energy on them. There were plenty of people like that, even before the apocalypse. Let alone now. He is right, Bipey said, pouring 2 cups of the coffee I would brewed. He handed them to him and Bonzi. Besides, supplies out there are getting scarcer. This kind of thing is bound to happen. Just be careful from now on. Don't go back that way. Tell me, is it possible 11 was captured by them? I asked Banzi. No way. Those people clearly are not the type to take prisoners. Killing him would be more their style. Dare blurted out without thinking. Bipey gave him a death stare, realizing he would messed up. He awkwardly took a sip of his coffee. I was not angry. I was just incredibly worried about 11. These past few days, I have kept the walkie-talkie clipped to my waist even while sleeping. Any free moment I have, I am using it to call out for 11. We did not dare write down the exact location of the 4S store everywhere. In the message, you told 11 to head to the newsstand, the one not far from here. We left a red flag there. If 11 makes it there, he just has to raise it, and we will be able to see it from the 4S store. Good. Get some rest. I will go make dinner. What do you want to eat? I pretended not to hear the question. I patted Dare and walked toward the supply area. That luocefen. I heard Dare's faint voice from behind me. We have it. I smiled. What should we do next? Should we check out the rendezvous points that are further away? I grabbed 4 packs of luocefen, sausages, and marinated eggs. Back to the dining area. The counter was fully stocked with pots, bowls, and basins. Most of them were brand new. To save gas, I found a large pot and prepared to dump in enough noodles for the 4 of us to cook together. Currently, the camp uses large barrels of purified water. They managed to find a manual pump from somewhere, attached it to the barrel opening, and it is actually quite convenient to use. Over the past 2 days, I have been using a notebook to tally our supplies. Based on our daily consumption, I calculated how many days each item would last. We still have 20 large barrels of water. If we are careful, it could last over a month. But we can't keep going like this forever. We need to make a trip to the countryside. I put the water on to boil and started unwrapping the food. Go dig up some soil and bring back some vegetables. If we are going to start planting, the sooner, the better. Let us go. All 4 of us are going. Bipey was in the weapon zone organizing gear. When he heard me, his eyes immediately lit up. Dare and Banzi were in the cloakroom changing shoes. They shouted back their agreement. There is a problem with living here. I took out 4 sets of disposable bowls and chopsticks, lining them up on the counter, and started opening the side dish packets, along with the sausages and marinated eggs. Water. We do not have a running water source. The 3 of them drifted over and sat at the counter, watching blankly as I tossed the noodles into the boiling water, pressing them down with some effort, and putting the lid on. How long can our bottled water last? Banzi asked. 2 months. But we can't use purified water for the crops. That is way too wasteful. We can just use that To water them. You know, that stuff. Dare pointed at his own stomach. Me. Bipey and Banzi nearly rolled their eyes to the back of their heads. That stuff of yours disgusts even me. Bipey reached across Banzi to swat him. What then? Do we seriously have to leave this place? Dare huffed indignantly. I am not leaving, period. There are hordes of them wandering around out there right now. We do not even have guns. If we run into them, we are dead meat. It is way safer here than in the countryside. What is the rush? Aren't we trying to figure it out right now? Let us go check things out tomorrow before we decide. This is the outskirts. The nearest fields are not that far off. Maybe there is a water source there. Worst case, we do it like the ancients and haul some water back. I thought about it, but there really was not a better way. I only regret that I did not study this stuff before. I do not know the first thing about agriculture. Banzi has plenty of stamina. Hauling water won't be a problem for him, Bipey said with a grin. Don't worry. Banzi's brow remained furrowed. His eyes were fixed motionlessly on the noodles. He spat out 3 words. Dare hauls it. I am so fragile. You would really have the heart to make me haul it. You do it, you do it. Bipey, move it. The 3 of them started joking around and messing with each other again. Outside, the sky was gradually growing dark. While waiting for the pot to boil, I picked up a lighter and lit the 6 candles at both ends of the bar counter. Then I opened the windows. A warm evening breeze drifted in the flickering candlelight. The only sound was the bubbling of the noodle soup. After waiting a while longer, I fished out a noodle to test it. The texture was just right, perfectly al dente. I switched off the portable stove and started ladling the broth into 4 bowls. I did not cook the sauce packets directly in the pot because I did not want to waste precious water washing a greasy pot. I only filled each person's bowl halfway, as the leftover broth could still be used to flush the toilet. Talk about a planned economy. The 3 of them happily grabbed their respective sauce packets, ready to squeeze them in. Hey, take it easy on that. If you get too thirsty later, you will just end up drinking all our water. Whatever. Dare defiantly squeezed every last drop of chili oil and luocefen broth base into his bowl. Then he ran over to the supply area and brought back 4 bottles of beer. Showing off his skills, he used the edge of the table to pop the beer caps off one by one. He handed a bottle to each of us. For a moment, the unique aroma of luocefen filled the camp. The air echoed with the sounds of slurping noodles and the aggressive gulping of beer. Finally, the 4 of us finished the last drop of soup in perfect unison. We let out a long, satisfied sigh, slumping into our chairs and rubbing our bloated bellies, not wanting to move a muscle for a long time. Today was the most exhausting day I have ever experienced. We set out early in the morning, but the outside temperature was already scorching. The midsummer heat certainly lived up to its reputation. While driving along the narrow country roads, we were forced to turn on the air conditioning. Our destination was a town nearest to the 4S store, about a 30-minute drive away. Considering we might need to haul things back, we first managed to get 2 small trucks, 2 people per vehicle, connected via Bipey's walkie-talkies. I was still paired up with Bipey. I would never driven a truck before, so it took a lot of fumbling around before I finally got it moving. I was just glad that there were no traffic rules left to follow. As we approached the town, I told Bipey to slow down. I leaned against the window to inspect the roadside farmland. There were quite a few figures in the fields. They seemed stuck in the mud, unable to wander around like they do in the city, due to the lack of maintenance. Weeds in the fields had grown waist-high. The crops were drooping but had not withered yet, likely thanks to the heavy rain from a few days ago. We drove for another 10 minutes or so. From a distance, I spotted a lush patch of green in a courtyard. I had Bipey and Dare pull over at the gate. The farmers here love building their own little villas. They usually enclose them with brick walls to grow their own vegetables and fruit, or raise some chickens and ducks for daily food. We just needed to find one house like this and move everything back with us. The 4 of us climbed over the wall from the top of the truck. Bipey and Banzi took the lead and the rear, while Dare and I stayed in the middle. Under the scorching sun, the courtyard was filled with a pungent, heavy odor. Damn, something must be rotting in here. Dare pinched his nose and complained. Could be the smell of pesticides. Bipey chimed in with a know-it-all air. The 4 of us cautiously made our way toward the back of the building. Just to be safe, Bipey gently pulled the first-floor entrance door shut. Farming tools were scattered across the ground. There were shovels, hoes, and even rakes. Banzi picked them up as he walked, carefully cradling them in his arms. There was a shed built on the west side of the front yard. Dare poked his head in out of curiosity, but immediately crouched down, retching. Don't go in. There is a dead pig inside. He blocked Bipey from entering, pulled out a handkerchief, and wiped his mouth incessantly. It is so hot. It smells like a total nightmare. nightmare. We stifled our laughter, took turns patting him on the back, and continued forward. The passage leading to the backyard was covered by a trellis, overgrown with unknown vines. What is this? Is it edible? Bipey reached out and gave them a tug. Could they be grapes? Dare hobbled over weakly. Definitely not. There is no fruit on them. Then what do you think they are? Why do you care if I know or not? The two of them started bickering again. Suddenly, I heard a rustle in the backyard, and then another movement. Shut. I turned and signaled the two of them to be quiet. Grabbing the broadcast stick, Banzi and I carefully peered around the corner. Sure enough, there was a vegetable garden in the backyard. From here, we could see hanging on the frames some wilted cucumbers and green beans. Banzi picked up a pebble from the ground and tossed it into the garden. Something came scurrying out. I shouted excitedly, but quickly caught myself, immediately lowering my voice. Quick, catch them. Before I could even finish my sentence, Bipey and Dare shot out like bullets, chasing two chickens all over the yard. Banzi and I worked together to corner them. Before long, each of them had caught a chicken. With wide toothy grins, they giggled like idiots at us. Look at you two, acting like fools. There is a well over there. Give them some water. Tie their legs together, and put them somewhere cool for now. Filled with joy, I pointed to a corner of the yard. Then I ignored them, and began to examine the vegetable garden closely. The greens planted in the ground, the cabbage, and the sweet potato leaves had been pecked to pieces by the chickens, but the ones slightly higher up were okay. That row of tomatoes had many fruits turning from green to red. They are just about ready to eat. Eggplants, green peppers, loofahs, and lettuces all looked promising. As long as we get them all back, give them some water and fertilizer, they should survive just fine. Banzi dove into a shed next to the garden. By the time I finished my scan, he came out, carrying a basket in his hands, filled with quite a few eggs. What is the plan now? He brought the egg basket over to Bipey and Dare, making them even more excited. Then we headed back to my place. We are moving everything here back with us, even the ones the chickens pecked at. As long as they are not completely devoured, they will do, I replied. I called over the two guys who were still messing around under the vines to get to work. Hold on a sec. How do you even get water out of this well? Bipey pointed at the contraption mounted over the well. He was asking about the big, rusty-looking thing. Don't any of you have relatives in the countryside? I looked at the three of them one by one. Surprisingly, all three of them shook their heads in unison. They all had the same clueless expression on their faces. Move aside. Don't get in the way. I used my foot to nudge Dare, who had crowded in, out of the way. I bent down. See, this is a manual water pump. Just keep pumping this handle. Cold water will start flowing out of that spout. Quick, get a bucket to catch it. I started pumping vigorously. The pump first made a gurgling sound. Then a surge of cool groundwater came gushing out. Whoa, let me try. The three of them started scrambling for a turn, like they would never seen water before. Whoever grabbed the handle pumped like a madman. Those who did not win the handle crouched on the ground, using their hands to catch the water. They were splashing it all over their arms. This water feels incredible. It is ice cold. So refreshing. I stood to the side, helplessly watching them play with the water. In no time, the entire courtyard was soaked. Even the vegetables in the garden got a heavy drenching. They even pranked the chicken, shoving its head into the water for a forced drink. The air suddenly became moist. The temperature around us dropped quite a bit. The three of them finally stopped fooling around. We began the great transplanting mission. Banzi and I used rope to loosely bundle the plants one by one. Then we moved on to the white radishes and unripe sweet potatoes. Bipey and Dare were in charge of using shovels to dig up the roots, along with the soil. The dug-up vegetables were all lined up against the courtyard wall. None of the four of us had ever done farm work before. We were all pretty hyped up, working with a lot of gusto. The weather was getting hotter and hotter. There was no shade in the courtyard. The sun was beating down on us mercilessly. Banzi managed to scrounge up a few hats. Dare was wailing in agony, while simultaneously shoving the only women's sun hat onto his own head. About 3 hours later, we finally finished digging up all the vegetables. Exhausted, we collapsed under the vines. Hey, what is the plan for the afternoon? Bipey lazily stuffed a small piece of bread into his mouth. Once we are done eating, we will find some big tubs and dig up more soil to take back. I was also feeling the heat, but my mind was racing. We still need well water and fertilizer. Let us see if there are any other treasures around here. So we just grabbed a quick bite, because it was just too damn hot. None of us were in the mood to rest. We just wanted to finish up and get back. We dug up a whole truckload of soil, piled all the vegetables on top, and lightly buried the roots in it. Then we found 6 large plastic buckets, and filled them to the brim with well water. While the three of them were hauling the buckets onto the truck, I kept searching for treasures in the courtyard. The farmhouse's small storehouse was not locked. It was incredibly dusty inside. It made me cough uncontrollably. I covered my nose and mouth and rummaged around inside for a while. Finally, I found 2 bags of fertilizer, a bag of feed, 2 bags of seeds. I hauled everything onto the truck in one go. There were also 5 or 6 water scoops made from gourds in the warehouse, and I took those along too, with a silent thank you. After everything was loaded, the 4 of us lined up, facing the gates we had just locked back up. We pressed our palms together, offering a moment of silence. Scavenging from someone's private property does not feel quite the same as hitting a supermarket. There is definitely a lingering sense of guilt. By the time we got back to the camp, it was already pitch black out. We parked the truck on the first floor. The moment Bipey shut the truck door, he started scrambling up the RV. Hey, the chickens. I pulled the chickens out from the vegetables and handed them to Bipey. He grabbed them and continued his climb. Suddenly, Dare gave me a rough tug. Hold on a sec. I thought something was wrong. I flashed my light on him, only to see him leap onto the truck, pop open a water barrel, scoop up some water, and start dousing his own head. Holy crap, Dare. Easy on the water. Bipey, standing on the RV roof, stomped his feet in a panic over the waist. Hee hee. Dare gave a mischievous grin, scooped up another ladle, and splashed it right at the 3 of us. Half my body got soaked instantly. An immediate wave of refreshment washed over me. All that exhaustion just vanished. Oh man, this feels incredible. Bipey used all his strength to toss the 2 chickens up to the second floor. Then he, Banzi, and I scrambled onto the truck like there was no tomorrow. We grabbed the scoops and started bathing right there. Bipey and Dare were totally shameless, stripping off their shirts and scrubbing like mad. Banzi was way more reserved, just crouching down quietly to wash his hair. We were so filthy. The water running off us was literally brown with mud. The 4 of us were hooting and hollering, only stopping after we would burn through half a barrel. Dripping wet, we headed back to the second floor, changed into fresh clothes, and it felt like we would come back to life. I was too lazy to cook a real meal, so I just boiled a pot of water and made 2 bowls of instant noodles for everyone. We even cracked open a beer. The chickens were untied, happily pecking at vegetable scraps right next to us. We sat in a circle on the floor, slurping noodles like we had not eaten in a century. Total vacuum mode. Finally, the 4 of us clinked our beer bottles together and yelled from the bottom of our hearts. To the farmers, spent the last 2 days setting up the garden. Every single muscle in my body is screaming in pain. Yesterday was all about prep work. We made 7 large hoist baskets on the rooftop, lowered them down, and hauled all the soil and vegetables from the truck up there. We used old empty water jugs to carry water, moving half to the second floor and the other half to the roof. While doing all this labor, one thought kept running through my head. Maybe there is a way to solve our water problem for good. Later, we made another trip to that little backwater village and scavenged a bunch of bricks, wooden slats, plastic sheets, straw, and bamboo poles. On the way back, we stopped by a hardware store. We grabbed a bunch of ropes, hammers, and tools like screws and nails. Once all the materials were ready, we officially started building the garden. Today, the rooftop is a large rectangular space with 4 ventilation shafts on top. We plan to set up a shed using plastic boards in the northwest corner to keep the tools dry, along with buckets and other supplies. A chicken coop would be built right next to it, while the vegetable patch was assigned to the southwest corner. Dare, you and Banzi work on the co-op together, I said, pointing toward the open space in the northwest. Okay, sir, Dare replied in his broken English, dragging Banzi away immediately with giddy excitement. I could not help but smile. Turning around, I found Bipey already waiting by the pile of bricks. The longer I spent with them, the more interesting I found them to be. Since we brought those 2 chickens back the day before yesterday, the 3 of them would crouch beside them whenever they were free, staring as the birds drank water, pecked at rice, and ate vegetable leaves. They even gave them a few strokes now and then, which somehow led to eggs being laid over the past 2 days. Of course, I had not forgotten about 11, but there was no movement from the pavilion across the way, and no response from the walkie-talkie. If I did not immerse myself in the life right in front of me, I feared my own thoughts would drive me insane. I also began to realize more profoundly that in this world, no one can stay by your side forever. Even bonds forged through life and death can be scattered at any moment by fate or death. In the apocalypse, the now feels especially real and vital. I walked over to Bipey, picked up a red brick, and sketched out the perimeter of the garden. We did not bring back much soil in one trip, so the planned size of the garden was about the same as that farmer's yard. 2 sides did not need bricks. We just used the corner of the rooftop for support. Following those 2 lines, we just had to stack them up layer by layer. Easy peasy. Since we were not using cement for the bricks, the stacking went incredibly fast. 10 minutes later, we had already finished 4 layers. That is enough, I said. Pile the extra bricks over there. Once we bring back more soil later, we can expand the garden anytime. Next up was spreading the soil onto the concrete within the marked area. Simple work too. Baipi worked happily, humming some random messy tune, looking quite satisfied with his progress. Before the soil was even fully spread, Dare and Banzi came looking for us. I would been hearing them debating at the other end of the roof, and it seemed they had not even started building yet. Hey, come check out this chicken coop design, Dare shouted. He handed over a piece of paper. On it was a crooked drawing of something resembling a birdhouse. What do you think? Pretty sweet, right? We are gonna build a big wooden box, then line it with a thick layer of straw. It will be cozy and look great too, he explained enthusiastically, spit flying everywhere, while Baipi stood there, completely dazed by the pitch. Hey, what are you doing? I snatched the paper away, flipped it over, and sketched a rectangular cage with a few quick strokes. Man, this is supposed to be a chicken coop. Please let us skip the artistic masterpiece. I poked at the paper emphatically. In my excitement, I accidentally poked a hole right through it. Saw a few wooden slats. Nail them together like this. Make a slatted door on the side. As long as the chickens can get out to stretch their legs, it is fine. The two of us headed back with the paper, covered in dust and grime. He kept grumbling that it did not look good at all, muttering things like it is ugly as hell. Weren't you in finance before? How do you know about this stuff? Baipi asked while shoveling up a large heap of soil. Over the past few days, he has become much more proficient with that shovel. My grandma lived in the countryside. She farmed and grew her own vegetables. My paternal grandparents lived in the city, but they loved raising chickens and flowers at home. I was around that stuff a lot when I was a kid. I have seen enough to know the basics. But as for exactly what to plant and when, I honestly have no clue. I explained to him, it is fine, we have got plenty of time on our hands anyway. We will just figure it out as we go. Baipi comforted me. Sigh, if only we still had the internet. A quick search would have given us all the answers. Yeah, it would be great if we could still go online. A look of longing washed over Baipi's face. Then he quickly shook his head to clear the thought. But things are not too bad right now either. Right, I think it is good. It is like, my heart feels a lot warmer. Yeah, the two of us leaned on our shovels, gazing out from the rooftop into the distance. The weather was gloomy. Massive clouds blocked out the sunlight. Even without the scorching sun beating down, we were still drenched in sweat. The wind blowing across the rooftop was humid and hot. It felt suffocating. Look quick. Baipi suddenly pointed toward the city. He grabbed me urgently. Countless abandoned vehicles stretched along the road into the horizon. Buildings of various heights sat like concrete boxes, displayed before our eyes, devoid of any life. The heavy dark sky seemed to press down against the earth, and in between, more and more figures began to appear. Slowly, they were moving in a dense mass toward the 4S store. That is a massive horde. I stood there frozen, not knowing how to react for a moment. Baipi snatched the shovel from my hand. He pulled me along as he ran toward where Dare and Banzi were. The two of them were squatting on the ground, sawing wood with a rhythmic rasp, completely unaware of what was happening. Hey, stop. Baipi hissed in a low voice, gesturing wildly at them. Confused, the two of them dropped their tools and followed us to the edge of the rooftop. We crouched behind the concrete wall and peered over. Holy crap, there is so many of them. What the hell is going on? Dare's jaw dropped in utter disbelief. Actually, this is not the first time, Banzi whispered, his brow furrowed deeply. The night before last, I got up to use the bathroom, and I saw a huge crowd of them wandering past, but they were heading in a different direction. Why the hell did not you tell us? Baipi asked, visibly shocked. There was no need to wake you guys up then. Then yesterday we were so busy working, it just slipped my mind. The roaring from downstairs was getting louder and louder, sounding like a swarm of very angry bees passing by. The four of us held our breath, not daring to make a single sound. Hey, I leaned close to Baipi's ear. Are all the doors on the first floor shut? Don't worry. I checked them all before I came up, he answered with reassuring confidence. No matter what, none of us would joke about something like this. I nodded, resting my head back against the concrete wall. Closing my eyes, I could hear them passing by very slowly. I do not know how much time passed, but eventually, the silence returned to the street below. We carefully scouted the perimeter of the camp, along the four walls. Aside from one or two stragglers passing through, everything was clear. Dare let out a long, heavy sigh of relief, and went back to tinkering with the chicken coop, with Banzi. Baipi and I leveled the last bit of soil, and began transplanting the vegetables. It was as if that whole thing was just a minor interlude. Totally insignificant. The song Baipi was humming suddenly started to sound familiar. It seemed to be the Plants vs. zombies theme, and so we spent another whole day busy like that. By the time evening rolled around, the napa cabbage, the bell peppers, the tomatoes, and the eggplants were all standing dutifully in the soil. The tomatoes and radishes were buried nice and deep. The luffa, kidney beans, and others were also comfortably winding themselves around the newly built trellises. Bipe was happily watering them, while I held my nose and applied the fertilizer. Dare and Banzi's chicken coop had also taken shape. Even though it was all crooked and pretty ugly, it was functional in the end. I showed them how to use 8 bricks to prop the co-op up, making it easier to clean, and we lined the inside with a layer of soft straw. In front of the co-op, we used rope to tie down some thick bamboo split in half, to serve as a feeding trough. Finally, we placed a plastic sheet over the top, to keep out the wind and rain. Before it got dark, the 2 hens finally moved into their cozy little home. It is so good. The 4 of us squatted on the ground, staring mesmerized at the fruits of our labor, unwilling to leave for a long time. Since finishing the garden and coop the day before yesterday, the 4 of us had been playing a boring game of hide and seek on the roof, to see who would go missing next. Yesterday and this morning, Dare took the initiative to go egg hunting. If there were plenty, he would be all smiles. If they were few, he would have a long face, threatening to stew one of the hens. I would go up to pick vegetables before lunch or dinner, watering them along the way. We were eating very sparingly, only picking out 1 or 2 items each time. In the evenings, we would head up on time to catch the breeze and chat. I told them about the idea I would been mulling over for the past couple of days. At the time, we were lying on 4 bamboo chairs on the rooftop, lined up in a row, digging a well. Right here, Bipe grabbed a cattail fan, fanning himself with quite a bit of flair, only pausing to swat at the mosquitoes on his legs. Well, it is not exactly a traditional well, I explained. I explained further. I used to have relatives living on the 1st floor in Shaosuo. They hired someone to drill down over 10 meters in their yard. Then they would shove a pipe down there. An electric pump pulls the water up and connects it straight to a faucet. Holy crap, that actually works. Dare, wearing only a tank top, was shaking his legs on my other side. Talk about a money saver. So, we are gonna need electricity, solar batteries, wiring, a drill, water pipes, an electric water pump. Banzi sat to the side, counting them off on his fingers. I will handle this. I looked at Banzi in surprise. His enthusiasm had suddenly spiked. Then I looked over at Dare. Hetha, our man Banzi here, used to be an electronic engineering and automation major. He just finished his freshman year. He's got basically 0 theoretical knowledge, and his practical skills are also 0. Banzi gave Dare a kick, nearly flipping his lounge chair over. But he is still really interested in this kind of stuff. Dare hurried to add, all right, I will leave it to you then. I was relieved. Finally, something I do not have to overthink myself. I am really not good with technical things. This morning, I fried an egg for everyone, plus 2 sausages each. Then I lightly toasted 12 slices of bread in the pan. They were piled up like 2 little mountains on the plates, looking exceptionally appetizing, just as I was using water boiled on the other portable stove to make cola sao for everyone. Banzi finished washing up and sat down in front of me. He helped me open 2 jars of jam. Where are those 2? Breakfast is pretty much ready. Out gathering eggs. They will be down in a sec. This looks great today. Right. I proudly handed him a large mug of cola sao. This is the breakfast I used to eat all the time as a kid. 2 slices of bread with jam and a fried egg. It is delicious. I was afraid everyone would still be hungry, so I added the sausages. You can have an extra slice of bread if you want. He nodded. He pulled a piece of paper from his pocket and handed it to me. I took it with one hand, glanced at it, and found a long list of supplies. So that is what you were writing in the tent last night, with your flashlight on. You are really dedicated. Banzi scratched his head, looking a bit embarrassed. Yeah, I was thinking of heading out today to look around, see if I can scrounge these up. If we can get the water pumped sooner, we won't have to go so far to fetch it anymore. I have only heard about how it works, though. I honestly have no idea what that equipment even looks like. Hey, breakfast is ready. Dare and Bipe came back grinning from ear to ear. They were holding 3 eggs in their hands. They carefully placed them right at the top of the egg basket. Neither of them bothered to wash their hands. They just plopped down at the counter with a laugh and started buttering the bread. Your hands are filthy. I chided them. A little dirt never hurt anyone. What does not kill you makes you stronger. So, who are you thinking of taking with you? How about Bipe? He will keep you a bit safer. I picked up my mug, took a deep gulp. For a split second, it felt like I was back in my childhood. Dare mumbled a protest with his mouth stuffed full. You are coming with me. Let us head back out to the countryside and bring back a rooster. Dare chewed vigorously for a moment, finally managing to swallow the mouthful of food. He took a swig of cola sao, washed it down, then asked in surprise, a rooster? Yeah, I was thinking, it would be great if those 2 hens could hatch some chicks. All right, let us do it. He perked up instantly. We can grab some water while we are at it. Both water barrels are bone dry. Der's face immediately fell. After breakfast, we all went our separate ways. Banzi and Baipi planned to head toward the city center to see if they could find a shop specializing in solar equipment. Worried about their safety, we packed them full gear and supplies. I even tucked 2 extra small knives into the pockets on the right side of their shins. Meanwhile, Dare and I planned to scout deeper into the rural townships to see if we could scavenge anything valuable. The weather was sweltering. A heavy rain seemed to be brewing overhead, yet it refused to break. We drove the small truck down the country roads. Dragonflies occasionally zipped by, flying low. The number of them on the ridges was clearly increasing, likely leftovers from the previous horde. They were starting to look withered. I guessed it was because food was becoming scarce for them. This was my first time heading out alone with Dare. He was clearly more energetic than Baipi. His mouth did not stop moving the entire way. That is how I found out. He used to be a game streamer, the kind who mostly played AAA titles. As luck would have it, my only hobby back when I was working was playing exactly those kinds of games. The two of us hit it off immediately. Scavenging went smoothly. We cleared out 2 of them at a farmhouse and made our way into the kitchen, thinking we might have electricity again someday. We picked the place clean. We took 5 bags of flour, 2 bags of rice, a bag of soybeans, and 3 jars of the family's homemade pickles. I hauled out 2 full tanks of gas, along with an old matching gas stove. The closer we got to the town center, the more of them we encountered. By 3 or 4 in the afternoon, we decided to turn back. Though we did not find a live rooster, we did manage to snag 3 more hens. We were more than satisfied with the day's haul. Wait a second. Just as we were heading out of the last courtyard gate, Dare suddenly narrowed his eyes and spoke. What is wrong? I looked in the direction he was staring. He suddenly yanked me, and we crouched down to hide by the front of the truck. The sound of people talking came from behind us. I got tense, holding my breath, ears pricked up, listening intently. Was that there before? A man's voice was getting closer and closer. I am not quite sure. I do not think so. Another man sounded very puzzled. They were heading this way too. Dare pointed at the truck. I nodded. With extremely light movements, he opened the door. I crawled in first, sitting in the passenger seat, keeping my head below the window. Then Dare crawled into the driver's seat. Once we were ready, he slammed the door shut and cranked the truck at the same time. We floored it before those 2 could even react. Hey, I saw it in the rear view mirror. Those 2 men chased us for a few steps, then stopped. They were shouting something agitatedly into a walkie-talkie. It is them, Dare said through gritted teeth. The truck took a sharp turn at the intersection, and the 2 of them vanished from the mirror. Who? The same thugs 11 ran into at the supermarket. I do not know if they live in this town, or if they scavenged their way here just like us. I said worriedly, let us take the long way around town before heading back. By the time we got back to the 4S store, one more thing was added to our list of worries. Banzi and Baipi were not back yet. We hauled the water up to the roof, put the chickens in their coop, and moved the gas tanks under the bar counter, connecting them to the stove. Then we brought up the rice and flour we got today, along with the soybeans and pickled vegetables. We stocked them neatly in the cabinets behind the bar. Even after everything was organized, Banzi and Baipi still had not returned. At that moment, it started raining intermittently outside. It was pitch black already. Dare and I sat in front of the second-floor glass, staring blankly at the dark city in the distance, hoping to see 2 small moving points of light, but they never appeared. I do not know how much time passed, but we finally felt a hint of hunger. So we grabbed 2 pieces of bread from the bar to fill our stomachs. When it reached our usual bedtime, Dare finally gave up. Let us sleep, he said. The 3 of us had an agreement. Never travel at night. If they are okay, they should have found a safe place to rest by now. If they are still not back tomorrow morning, we will go out and find them. I nodded, but I did not sleep. I turned on the walkie-talkie again, staring at it for a long time. As soon as dawn broke, we set out to find Baipi and Banzi, because they headed toward the city, without a clear destination. Based on our agreement, the 2 of them would use spray paint to leave marks along the way. Here, a can of orange spray paint, B+B. Not long after setting out, I spotted a mark on a wall by the street. B stands for Baipi. Dare and I are D and L, respectively. Moving along this street, we drove following the marks. Before long, we turned onto a main road. We passed through several suburban neighborhoods, in succession. Some appliance stores had X marks on their entrances. It looks like those 2 were being very thorough. Every possible spot nearby had been searched. Finally, the marks led us down a small path into District 7. I do not know if it was because of the massive horde wandering around lately, but we did not see many of them on the road. Everywhere was deserted. Only the occasional chirping of morning sparrows could be heard. Due to the lack of maintenance, the city streets had begun to sprout wild grass. Who knows which cracks those seeds managed to fall into? What is the deal? Where's the next one? Dare tapped the steering wheel anxiously, his head darting around, looking for clues. Over there. Go straight then turn left. That was the last mark we saw. Not far from it, Bipey and Banzi's gray truck was parked right in front of a standalone building. The appliance mall. Holy crap, those two must be trapped inside. Dare could not help but curse under his breath, his face scrunched up in worry. I stayed silent, but a sense of dread was growing in my heart. We parked the car a bit further away, armed with all our gear and some food. From the F7 vehicle, Dare took his bow and arrows off his back. I gripped my club tightly, and we tiptoed together toward the mall entrance. In the back of Bipey and Banzi's truck, a lot of stuff had already been loaded. We took a quick peek as we passed by. There were solar water heaters, batteries, 9 solar panels, and some accessories. It seems they ran into trouble while they were hauling the supplies. Move it. Dare pointed toward the revolving door. I nodded. The revolving door was old, and it did not turn very smoothly. Inside, it was even darker. I followed nervously behind Dare. It felt like that night I got separated from 11 all over again. I tried my best to suppress the panic, shifting my focus to our surroundings. The appliance mall was filled with a thick smell of dust and a foul stench. The bloodstains on the floor had already turned a yellowish brown. It looked like something pretty bad had happened here before. There were many small stalls inside, still hanging various promotional banners. The first floor seemed to be mostly phones and computers. They probably would not be here. We headed to the escalator to check the directory. According to the map, the second and third floors were for home appliances, mainly including TVs, air conditioners, refrigerators, kitchenware, and bathroom fixtures. The entire fourth floor was for lighting. Right here, Dare pointed to an area on the 5th floor. Speak softly. Solar power specialty store. Let us go check it out. The further up we go, the darker the electronics mall becomes. We can hear it, that gnashing sound of teeth clicking together, echoing from unknown corners. It makes us quicken our pace. At every floor, I use my flashlight to sweep the darkness. We do not dare use the walkie-talkies, nor can we risk shouting out. We can only hope the light catches Bipey and Banzi's attention. Once we reach the 5th floor, we start heading toward the solar power section. Dare is still in the lead, and I am covering the rear. He shoots 2 of them along the way. I rush up to finish them off and recover the arrows. During the whole process, there is only the sound of arrows slicing the air and bodies hitting the floor. The commotion was kept to a minimum. There are not many solar power shops, maybe about 5 or 6. Dare looks for signs of the other 2 moving through. While I search through the shelves inside the stores, Dare pulls me into one of the shops. Underneath the dust-covered solar appliance displays, there are 2 obvious empty spots. The surrounding items are mostly solar water heaters and chargers. This is the place. I feel the cardboard boxes beneath the empty spaces. On the other side of the shop, there is a row of solar panels. They look exactly like the ones they carried down, but there are no gaps among them. It is like they have not been touched at all. What is going on? I can't help but feel confused. Dare beckons me over. He is crouching by the checkout counter, shining his flashlight. Look at this inventory list. There is a list of solar generators. The first few are kept in the shop, but the ones at the bottom have a location marked. The small warehouse on the 6th floor. Now I get it. I see why they did not just take the stock from the shop. The equipment in the store is all under 2,000 watts, but we need to run a water pump. We would better grab the 4,000 watt ones on the list to be safe. Since the 6th floor is not a public commercial area, the 2 of us follow the signs all the way to the emergency exit. Then we climb the stairs to the 6th floor. Dare is very nervous. The arm holding his bow is shaking slightly. Strangely, I am starting to relax. Maybe it is because since the apocalypse started, I have had to clear quite a few stairwells. At the 6th floor entrance, I have Dare open the door. I stand there with my baton raised high, ready to strike at any second. The door is yanked open. I hold my breath and wait. Nothing. We walk inside. The 6th floor is actually brighter than the floor below, so we switch off our flashlights. From where we are standing, on the left is a row of offices with security bars on the windows. On the right are rooms with heavy security doors. Those should be the small warehouses. To make sure we do not miss anything, we start checking them one by one. There are not many offices. Most are locked tight. It is quiet inside. No movement. When we almost reach the end, we peek around the corner to see what is down the next hallway. What we saw next made us gasp in collective horror. In that section, about a dozen zombies were scattered around. They were swarming right in front of an open office door. They are not trapped inside there, are they? Dare asked me, his voice trembling. If that was the case, then we were in deep trouble. I backed away slowly, found an office with the door ajar, and slipped inside. The office was not too messy. It seemed like no one was here when the world went to hell. There were 2 rows of computer desks, and a sign for some trading company was plastered on the wall. I found a stool and sat down, then pulled out the walkie-talkie. Hey, what are you doing? Dare suddenly grabbed my hand, whispering urgently, do you have a better idea? I brushed his arm away. If they are trapped in a separate room, room. Picking this up should be fine. I will keep my voice down. Ignoring him, I turned on the radio and started calling out. He sat to the side, looking defeated, and took a swig of water. Hello, Bipi, Banzi, are you guys there? I kept my voice as low as possible. If you hear me, please answer. There was no response from the radio. I tried calling several more times. Just as I was about to give up, a burst of static came through from the other side. Dare jumped up in excitement and snatched the radio from my hand. It is Dare. Are you there, you there? Give them a second to answer, for heaven's sake, I said, feeling helpless. After a few agonizingly long seconds, Bipi's familiar voice finally crackled over the radio. Dare, it is Bipi. I am here. Did you guys come to find us? Banzi is with me. His voice sounded like he was on the verge of tears. Don't panic. First, tell me exactly where you are. I leaned in. We are on the 6th floor of the electronics mall. We came up through the east fire exit. In the office by the first hallway. We turn right to enter the next hallway. But there are so many zombies in here. It looks like they are gathering outside an office. Yes, that is exactly where we are. It is 2 connected offices. Once you enter from the hallway, there is a large room, and inside that room, there is another door, leading to the office I am in now. We were moving the generator back then, and suddenly the zombies swarmed in. We had no choice but to hide in this room. Can you count them? How many zombies are outside your room? After a short pause, the radio crackled again. There are 12 in the outer office. We can't see the hallway clearly, but it sounds like there are a lot. Yeah, we just saw about a dozen out there. What is the plan? They are all loitering right outside the door. We are stuck. You two should eat something for now. Drink some water. Keep your strength up. We need to find a way to lure the ones outside the room away. All right. The sound from the walkie-talkie cut out. What is your plan? Dare looked at me, swallowing hard. Take them out, I replied. My heart was pounding like crazy. There are too many of them. Luring them won't work. If we mess up, we will block our own way back. How do we handle this many? Dare asked, looking troubled. We will have to take them in batches. Look, there's a window up there, leading to the office next door. I pointed to the narrow glass window, high up on the side wall. It is probably the same company. We checked earlier. The door next door is closed. In a moment, we will smash that glass. Set the tables right. Then lure the zombies from the hallway over here. Kill as many as we can. If we can't finish them, we climb through that window. Circle back and go at them again. Oh man. Dare started swallowing even more nervously. I would better put my camo jacket on. If I get bitten, it might buy me some time, he said while untying the jacket from his waist. I started stacking anything I could find to stand on. Once it was high enough, Dare opened the office door and stood guard. I climbed up and used a pry bar to smash the glass. This was not tempered glass like the kind that trapped me at the mall. It shattered after just a few hits. As I was clearing the shards from the edges, Dare suddenly hissed in a low voice. Here they come. The noise of the breaking glass had already drawn them in. Dare's arrows took down 2 of them. I quickly jumped down to help. Luckily, only 5 showed up. We managed to finish them off without much trouble. Bipi, we are heading your way now. Get ready. After speaking, I turned off the walkie-talkie. We might need to go stealth from here on out. I did not want the walkie-talkie to screw us over again. The next 5 or 6 zombies in the hallway were spread out. Their backs were turned to us, so they had not been alerted yet. Dare and I exchanged a look, and I pulled the dagger from my waist. He picked one off from a distance first. We lunged forward, swiftly driving daggers into the skulls of the remaining 2 from behind. They were already pretty badly decomposed. It did not take much effort. Just as Dare was pulling his arrow out of a corpse, the zombies inside the office and the 3 left in the hallway were startled. We hesitated for a second at the entrance, just in time to see Bipi waving at us through the door's window. Back up, now, I said as I started retreating. Dare's arrow dropped another one. I knocked one down with the pry bar. The rest of the swarm was fully alert, completely drawn to us. They closed in with terrifying speed. We did not stick around to fight. We turned and bolted for the trading company's office, then scrambled up through the window one by one, landing in the office next door. Behind the wall, we could hear the sound of chairs being knocked over. We sat on the floor, gasping for air. That is when I realized we were both soaked in sweat. That went smooth enough, Dare managed to say between heavy breaths. A few of them just followed us. I asked him about it. Most of them should have followed us in here by now. The 2 of them can probably handle the ones left outside. We won't need to lead them away in a bit. We can just lock the door directly. I wiped off my sweat and took a long drink of water. Anyway, those things do not know how to open a security door. Dare gave me a big thumbs up. A grin spread across his grime-streaked face. Let us go. We adjusted our gear and quietly crept outside. This office also used a heavy security door. Opening it without making a sound took quite a bit of time. As soon as it opened, we ran right into Bipi and Banzi, who were peeking around with their clubs raised. Their weapons were stained with dark blood, maybe because their nerves were stretched to the limit. The two of them jumped when they saw us. Dare immediately pulled Bipey into a hug. Then he started gesturing wildly while covering both their mouths. His excitement was beyond words. Banzi was smiling. I gave him a fist bump. Together, we crept to the entrance of the trading company and pulled the shutter down in one go. Clang! The door shut with a deafening bang. The four of us rushed back to the room we were just in. We waited inside for a long time. Only after making sure no more of them were coming out did we finally breathe a huge sigh of relief. Let us get out of here, fast, Dare said, sounding full of resentment. I do not want to stay in this place for another minute. What about the generator? Banzi was not giving up. It is right by that door. We could not carry it while we were running earlier. Let us grab it. This section of the hallway should be safe now. Dare rolled his eyes. He reluctantly followed to fetch the generator and was forced to help Bipey carry it. Banzi and I guarded them from the front and back. By the time we finally made it out of the electronics mall, it was already high noon. The sun was scorching hot, making the outside feel like a literal oven. The four of us climbed onto the truck in pairs, collapsing into the seats all at once. Good thing I acted fast and saved your skin, Bipey remarked with a sigh. Otherwise, you would have been toast today. Without me, you guys would probably still be eating instant noodles. You would not even be here. Fair point. So you still owe me your life. Ha ha ha. Bipey laughed arrogantly. Since returning from the electronics mall, none of the four of us had stepped foot outside the camp. Firstly, we were busy installing the solar power system. Secondly, we were truly exhausted. This kind of fatigue was not just physical, it was psychological too. It was the first time since the apocalypse that we had taken out so many of them. Under Banzi's leadership, the installation went fairly smoothly. By last night, the lights in the camp, the rice cooker, and the electric fans were all operational. As for the air conditioner, the electric kettle, the washing machine, and the induction cookers, their power consumption was just too high. Since we had alternatives for them anyway, we decided to skip them for now that we had power. Before going to sleep last night, the four of us all pulled out our phones at the same time. For the first time, the camp looked exactly like the world before the apocalypse. Everyone had their heads down, lost in their own devices. I never used to find mobile games that interesting, but last night I stayed up until dawn playing Tetris. We still have not installed the solar water heater, because we have no clue where to find a drilling rig and a water pump. Anyway, it is summer right now. Taking a cold shower is still bearable. Who knows when the day will come, when we will actually be able to finish this project. There is also something that has been weighing heavily on our minds. It is the main reason we have not left the camp yet. During these few days, we have been holed up inside. We have heard the sound of cars passing by more than once. This afternoon, we happened to be working on the rooftop. I caught that irritating roar of an engine again. They were circling around our position, getting closer and closer. Bipey quickly pulled me down to hide behind the rooftop parapet. Dare and Banzi scrambled to drop down as well. This was more nerve-wracking than an encounter with them. Maybe the people in that car were just scouting the area. Or worse, they have taken an interest in our camp. After they left, we immediately dropped what we were doing. We ran to check the perimeter of the camp, looking for anything too conspicuous or signs of life that might give us away. To attract customers, this 4S store has glass curtain walls on all four sides of the first two floors. There is an open parking lot behind the store, with a few cars scattered around. All old models, of course. Look at that. Bipey pointed toward one side of the second floor. All the supplies we have gathered are clearly visible from here. It is way too obvious. I am afraid they have already seen everything. Is it too late to move everything now? I asked. I had a real sinking feeling in my gut. It felt like our secrets were being pried into by strangers. Even if it is late, we have to move it. We can't afford to attract any more people. Dare looked dead serious. Aside from the second floor, they might also want the cars on the first floor, especially the RVs. Banzi added. Back when we were setting up defenses, we shifted all the cars in the showroom around. Looking at it from here now, it is obvious that someone is living inside. If that is the case, we can only wait for them to come knocking. Or we negotiate. Bipey crossed his arms, a look of pure anger on his face. They clearly know people are living here, yet they keep coming back to scout. Most likely, they are up to no good. Pull up the fire escape on the roof and the ladders on the RVs. Seal the ground floor doors tight. If we ration the well water, we can last another 2 weeks. Maybe we can deal with this problem first. August 4th, Thursday. My heart has turned cold. This morning, before the sun was even up, we were jolted awake by a relentless roar. They brought 5 or 6 cars, circling the 4S store, acting as if they did not care at all about the noise. Weren't they afraid of attracting them? We scrambled to get our clothes and gear on. Banzi was so frantic he could barely hold his arrows. Hey, friends up there, someone shouted from outside. His voice was dripping with mockery. Hello, anyone home? Darlings. Motherfucker. Blood boiled in the four of us. Cursing under our breaths, we crept behind the glass wall to look out. All their cars had come to a halt. They lined up one after another in front of us. A man was standing on top of a truck, holding a megaphone. Seeing him with his hands on his hips like that, Bipey grabbed the megaphone we had prepared and ran toward the rooftop. I told Dare to go up with him first, while Banzi and I stayed to guard the second floor. We had blocked the only entrance with a large cabinet from the 4S store. The RV downstairs had already been driven away and hidden. We even stuffed it with water and food, just in case. What do you think you are doing? I heard Bipey shout. Don't get your panties in a twist. We are just borrowing your place for a bit. The man answered lazily. Borrow? Just for a few days. And how are you calculating the interest on that? A burst of laughter came from below. Are you thick or just playing dumb? Maybe we should talk to someone else instead. I suggest you all leave now. With all this noise, them will be here any minute. But do not you worry. Don't worry, the man waved his hand. By the time they get here, we will already be cozy in your little villa. How's that? Are you going to clear out on your own, or do we have to kick you out ourselves? Bipey did not say a word, seemingly weighing his response. Hey, the kid with the bow next to you, I would not pull that if I were you. If your hand slips and you hit one of us, I might not be able to restrain my buddy here, who loves his air rifle. A man holding a gun emerged from the truck beneath his feet. The barrel was raised high, aiming right at the rooftop. They really have a gun, I whispered to Banzi. Looks homemade, Banzi said, observing closely through binoculars. But even if it is DIY, it is enough to deal with us. There we go. It sounded like Dare had lowered his bow. All right, look, let us make a deal. If you leave quietly, you can take a jug of mineral water with you. Another roar of laughter erupted from below. Another wave of mockery broke out. Someone chimed in, drink up. Aren't you being a bit stingy, very stingy even? This is the first time I have allowed anyone to walk away with anything under my watch. Make it 2 jugs then, considering they worked so hard to hoard it. His words were cut short by a string of curses and the whistling of an arrow, immediately followed by a gunshot and more cursing. The group was clearly provoked. The leader threw the megaphone aside. His companions crawled out of the vehicle one by one. Men and women alike, brandishing all sorts of weapons, charged toward the first floor. Arrows kept flying down from above, along with the sound of bricks smashing. Crash! The glass door on the first floor shattered just as dawn was breaking. I saw Banzi's face turn pale. Sweat had already soaked through his shirt. I was not doing any better. My palms were slick with nervous sweat. The whole mob entered the first floor. Both sides stopped attacking. What is going on? Someone asked. Damn it, they have blocked the stairwell. Then how did they get up there? There used to be an RV here. I told them to climb onto the roof, another voice replied. I went to check. Banzi and I crouched by the entrance with our bows as they drew closer. Look, there is a gap here. Looks like it is blocked by something. Quick, drive the tallest truck over. As someone ran to the vehicle, more arrows and bricks rained down on them. A scream rang out as someone was struck in the shoulder by a brick. Cover. Watch the cover, you idiots. Outside the camp, it was total chaos again. That is when I noticed them appearing not too far away. The truck was driven over quickly and stopped directly beneath us. Over by the stairs, someone was relentlessly hammering and prying at something. The whole building shook. The ladder. Get the ladder. Then I heard wood splintering as the cabinet was pushed up slightly. Banzi and I immediately threw ourselves onto it to hold it down. It just moved. Where are those wooden poles they prepared up there? Hurry up. Send 2 people out to lure them away. Just as Banzi and I were wondering what the wooden poles were for, thick smoke began to billow up from the gap. Crap, they are using fire. Banzi and I panicked. The water we had on the second floor was not nearly enough. Even if we could douse the cabinet, we could not put out the source of the fire in their hands. I ran back into the tent and yanked out my blanket. I soaked it with water, trying to plug the gaps. But the people downstairs were still desperately shoving cabinets against the door, only making the cracks wider. The entire cabinet became scorching hot, looking like it would ignite at any second. More and more smoke began to billow out. Trapped in that semi-enclosed space, I was coughing uncontrollably from the fumes. I could barely keep my eyes open. Quick, we have to go. I grabbed Banzi, who was still fighting to hold the line. His eyes were streaming from the smoke. The 2 of us used the wet blankets to cover our mouths and fled toward the 3rd floor. However, even the 3rd floor hallway was filled with thick smoke. We did not stop until we reached the rooftop. We collapsed on the ground, gasping for fresh air while rubbing our bloodshot eyes. Cough cough. Bipey and Dare locked the door, then came over to pat Banzi and me on the back. They handed us some water. It was for us to wash our faces. Those low-life scumbags. Flammable materials would ensure they burned, along with the supplies. Looking at all that cargo, I felt a pang of distress. The noise from downstairs was getting louder. Most of them had already made it up. Their footsteps started moving toward the 3rd floor. We kept pouring the fuel while retreating. We backed all the way to the rooftop exit and poured the remaining gasoline right at the door. Once that was done, we crouched by the rooftop door, listening to the commotion below. "Hey kids, come on out," the lead man shouted. "Look at all these supplies. We have hit the jackpot." His voice was quickly drowned out by the ecstatic cheers of the others in the hallway. More and more gasps of wonder reached our ears. We could hear people entering the rooms and discovering the piles of local goods. Just as they approached the rooftop exit, Bipey flicked his lighter. He tossed it into the gasoline at our feet. In a split second, a trail of flames roared down the hallway toward the third floor. I slammed the iron door shut. As I locked it tight, the air instantly became blistering hot. Agonizing screams erupted from the other side. For a moment, I felt a daze of guilt, wondering what I had just done. Bipey pulled me toward the fire escape, and we scrambled down quickly. At the same time, the vehicle on the first floor started up, picking up Banzi and me right on time. As we drove toward where the RV was parked, two figures chased us for a while. They eventually stopped in despair. We looked back through the window. The third-floor glass was all shattering as the inferno burst through. Plumes of black smoke rose as them began to swarm in from all directions. Those two figures did not care about their companions anymore. They hopped into a random car and fled the scene. I realized I did not feel guilty. I just knew we had lost everything. After half a month of peaceful life at the camp, I was back on a journey of wandering once again. We were driving two vehicles, a small box truck and an RV. We were heading south, planning to reach the coastal areas. The food in the RV and the truck was enough to last us 2 weeks. That was not much. By this stage of the apocalypse, most street-side shops had been picked clean, and we did not dare enter the cities. So, we started searching for supplies in rural homes. This mostly depended on luck. Many families had installed security doors. Even in some old houses, if the doors were locked tight, it was hard to get in. Luckily, we had a ladder in the RV. Most of the time, we would climb in through the second-floor balcony. Then we would head straight for the kitchen. There, we could usually find things like instant noodles, flour, rice, green beans, or milk. If we got lucky and found a house belonging to a snack lover, we might find boxes of nuts, potato chips, spicy strips, and so on. We could also haul away entire jugs of purified water from the dispensers. Most of our gear was still with us, because we had prepared for the worst. We had already moved the important stuff into the RV. The less important things could be replaced on the road. After the events of the other day, we realized the importance of firepower, so we kept scavenging through the towns. Whenever we passed a fireworks shop, we would take all the firecrackers back with us. We would take them apart, collect the gunpowder inside, and pack it into glass jars to make makeshift explosives. We also stopped using gas for cooking. Instead, we saved it for emergencies. We scavenged a wood-burning stove from a farmhouse. Now we use firewood to cook our meals every day. The vehicle was equipped with 7 army cots. At nightfall, Bipey would pick an open spot with an excellent vantage point. The RV and the truck would park there. The 4 of us took turns keeping watch on the roof at night. Of the other 3, 1 would sleep inside the RV, and 2 would sleep on the cots in the truck's cargo bed. Usually, if any of them passed by, we could just ignore them. If there is a large-scale swarm wandering nearby, we will evacuate in advance. In this world, you will eventually realize that as long as a person can eat their fill and have a place to sleep, everything else can be made to work. The 3 of them are not in a great mood. They all look pretty dejected. For one, it hurts to have lost so many supplies. Secondly, it is their first time trekking such a long distance without a base. Even though this life on the road only started 2 days ago, they have clearly become very anxious. I often try to bring up certain topics to distract them, like our plans after finding a suitable school and things like that. I even started drawing maps and diagrams on paper. Whenever I do this, they just offer a few half-hearted remarks, and then sink back into silence. I think they are probably disappointed, afraid that our base will be snatched away again. Being attacked by your own kind hits much harder than being chased by them. It makes me miss 11 even more. I have developed a habit of fiddling with 11's walkie-talkie, even if my mind is occupied with completely unrelated things. To me, it feels like a memento or a lucky charm. The moment it leaves my side, I feel incredibly uneasy. We left a message for 11 at the flag's location. Told him to head south following our markers. I will be waiting for him there. 3 days after the typhoon left, we finally reached the southern region. I did not expect the summer here to be cooler than in the central region, especially today, when I was switching shifts with Bipey. It was around 4 in the morning, and the sky was still pitch black. Rubbing my sleepy eyes, I climbed from the RV bed to the folding chair on the roof. I picked up the binoculars and scanned the area by the moonlight. Seeing no danger, I started dozing off in the chair again. I do not know how long passed before a sudden, violent gust of wind hit. It nearly blew me right off the chair. Instinctively, I threw my weight in the opposite direction. The roof of the RV let out a startling, hollow thud. What is wrong? Are there zombies? Bipe's voice drifted up from inside the vehicle. It is nothing. The wind just picked up suddenly. I shouted back while folding up the chair, deciding to just stay awake. I climbed down through the skylight into the RV and started preparing breakfast for everyone. Now that the chickens are gone, eggs are obviously off the menu. The sliced bread we scavenged has also expired. Seeing that it was still early, I grabbed a small basin. I scooped out half a bowl of glutinous rice flour from the kitchen cabinet. Then I poured some hot water from the thermos and started kneading the dough. Over the last few days of scavenging, we managed to score several different types of flour and cornmeal. These are exactly the kinds of things I prefer to look for. They are convenient to eat and easy to store. Just like this breakfast, I just need to spend a little time rolling some rice balls, boil them up, serve them with some pickled vegetables, and that'll be enough to fill these 3 gluttons up. Just as I was putting my back into kneading the dough, Bipe emerged from the bedroom inside the RV. Can't sleep, did I wake you up? I watched him sit down in front of me. He was staring blankly at the sky as it began to brighten outside the window. No, he said, pointing outside. Look at that. Do you think a typhoon is coming? His reminder made me realize it is exactly typhoon season in the south right now. In the past, I used to complain about inaccurate weather forecasts. Now, there are no more typhoon warnings. Everything depends on our own judgment. It is very likely. Should we move somewhere else? Out here in the middle of nowhere, it is not safe, I said, feeling worried. I will go wake those 2 up. We need to find some cover. After saying that, Bipe hopped out of the RV. A few seconds later, I heard him pounding loudly on the truck's container. Why is something wrong? Are there zombies? Banzi, Dare cried out in a panicked daze. No zombies, but a typhoon might be hitting. We need to relocate. Holy crap, man. Is a typhoon really worth making such a fuss about? Compared to my sleep, a typhoon ain't worth jack. True. Go back to sleep then. Once a tree crushes you to death, you won't have to worry about being woken up anymore. Damn it, Bipe. Why are you cursing me first thing in the morning? Alright, cut the crap. Get up, there are rice balls to eat. After a short while, Bipe strolled back inside. His face was soaking wet. He must have washed it with the well water kept in the back of the van. He sat down opposite me again. He watched me blankly as I rolled the dough into small, round balls one by one. Thanks, Bipe suddenly muttered. His whole face was the picture of sincerity. What is wrong? Seeing him like this, I felt a bit worried. You have been constantly coming up with different things for us to eat, even though we barely have any ingredients. The 3 of us had been feeling really down, but we are doing much better now. Don't mention it, I said, and we shared a smile. Then Bipe's hand moved under the table. He pulled out a jar of lao gan ma. Make a few with this filling, we love that stuff. I gave him a playful kick, and he chuckled as he went to drive the car. The wind outside was getting stronger, making the RV's windows rattle loudly. No time for a proper meal. We hit the road immediately. Bipe's plan was to find a shopping mall, or an underground garage beneath a hotel. Park the car right at the entrance to take cover. We were currently on the outskirts of the town. In the distance were fields and hills, and above us were towering trees. It was simply too dangerous. 10 minutes later, I packed away the dozens of rice balls I would roll. I sat down in the passenger seat. The cloud layer in the sky was thick and oppressive. Raindrops had already started to fall sporadically. It had begun to drizzle. Figures appeared in the nearby fields. Hearing the car passing by, they turned their heads one after another to look. They all turned their heads to stare at us. Their eyes had rotted away, leaving only 2 hollow sockets. The tattered clothes on their bodies were almost being blown away by the wind. About half an hour later, the rain suddenly turned into a downpour. The wipers could not keep up with the speed of the cascading water. Our vision became increasingly blurred. Bipe was clearly getting nervous. How is it? Can you see any place where we can take shelter? He asked me. Because both the windshield and the rear-view mirrors were completely blurred. I had no choice but to crack the window a bit to look out. About 5 minutes ago, we had driven into a small town. Now both sides were lined with low, old-fashioned buildings. Occasionally, we passed 1 or 2 open-air parking lots. The entrances were all blocked with abandoned vehicles. Up ahead to the right, there seems to be a tall building in the distance. It should be. Look out, whoa, Bipe slammed on the brakes. Something like a dried plastic awning suddenly crashed down right in front of us. It was less than a meter from the front of our car. Thud crash bang, things were crashing down one after another. In the howling wind and torrential rain, it was even more terrifying. Bipe and I were so scared we held our heads, not daring to move for a long time. Hey, what do we do? Dare was shouting over the walkie-talkie. The typhoon is getting stronger. There is no time to find an underground garage. I hurriedly leaned toward the window to check the shops along the street. I saw a coffee shop not far ahead. It had tall, wide floor-to-ceiling glass windows. There, that coffee shop. I pulled Bipey over and pointed at it. If we crash through the glass, there should be enough room for both vehicles. Good. Bipey did not hesitate. He nodded in agreement immediately. Sit tight and put your seatbelt on. He braved the gale, sticking his head out of his window to adjust the direction of the car's front. I meanwhile told Dare the plan. I told them to wait for us to break in, then follow. Once everything was ready, we closed both windows. Grab the handle, we are going in. Bipey floored the accelerator. The RV charged straight toward the glass of the coffee shop. I squeezed my eyes shut in tension, accompanied by a massive crash and the sound of falling glass shards. We were already inside the coffee shop. The car stopped in the middle of the shop, towards the bar counter. There was still plenty of space on the right to use, so I got out first to move the tables and chairs. Bipey turned the car right and parked it sideways against the wall. Dare and Banzi's small truck followed into the shop. It parked right next to the RV. The coffee shop had 3 large floor-to-ceiling glass sides. The front one was now completely empty, with only the wall frame remaining. This place is not half bad, Dare said, jumping down from the truck cab with a satisfied look. Let us fix something to eat. We can even brew some coffee while we are at it. Banzi nodded, looking around at the cafe's interior decor. A nostalgic expression flickered across his face. Grab the gear and help me pack up the stove. Let us head to the second floor. I held the hand-rolled glutinous rice balls close to my chest. The group noisily made their way up to the second floor. There were no floor-to-ceiling windows upstairs, making it much safer. There was a bar counter right by the stairs where we could prep breakfast. As soon as they set their things down, the 3 of them began their habitual scavenging. By the time I finished cooking the rice balls and brewing the coffee, they returned lugging a mountain of supplies. They dropped everything onto the booth table. Greaseproof paper, coffee cups, and massive bags of coffee beans, milk powder, syrup, and even some biscuits and snacks. Haha. Talk about a bumper harvest. This is way better than staying in a parking lot. The 3 of them wore smug grins. They started slurping down the rice balls enthusiastically. I saved one for myself and popped it into my mouth. Immediately, the Lao Gan Ma filling made me choke and cough. Outside, the wind was already whipping into a swirl. The torrential rain sent broken branches slamming against the windows. Smelling the rich aroma of coffee inside, and curling up among the soft sofas and pillows, I felt incredibly warm and at peace. After entering the southern region, our pace of progress slowed down significantly, especially these past 2 days. We moved in fits and starts, not daring to stray too far from the towns. As soon as the wind picked up even a little, we would immediately scout for an underground parking lot to hide in. It has not stopped raining even until now. There are living people in this town. Bipey pulled up a stool and sat down next to me. I was busy kneading dough in the space between the 2 vehicles. We have got nothing else to do anyway. Might as well pull some noodles. How do you know? Dare overheard Bipey's remark. He stretched lazily on the RV bed and asked, I saw them when we entered the town yesterday. Where exactly did you see them? Just then, Banzi crawled out from the truck bed. In his hand, he clutched a yellow, lumpy package. Hey, Banzi, you are not planning to do that right now, are you? Bipey frowned as he looked at him. I am going to find a spot outside. Banzi grabbed a raincoat from the RV door and threw it on, to test its power. He was holding a homemade explosive charge. Be careful, okay? Don't go too far. Did you take your weapon and the radio? I was nagging him like a worried mother. Banzi had already stepped into the rain, rounding a corner and disappearing. Got him, his voice drifted back from the distance. You guys think he will be all right? I started pulling the dough. He will be fine, definitely. I always feel like those things get clumsy in the rain. Their reactions are not as fast, Dare muttered. Bipey, you mentioned there are survivors here. What is the deal? He opened a magazine that he would flipped through so much it was practically falling apart. Inside was a photo of a celebrity in a bikini. He seemed very fond of it. There is a hospital not far from here. Did you guys see it? I think so, but I did not look closely. When we passed by, someone was staring at us from an upstairs window. My hand slipped, and I almost dropped the flower basin. You sure you did not missy? What if it was one of them? Dare sat bolt upright on the bed, his face turning pale. I can still tell the living from the dead. Bipey added that the person was holding a bow and arrow. They are probably just as scared of us. Since we settled here last night, I have been wondering if they would come looking for trouble. It seems they just see us as people passing through. Dare flopped back down. Dare drifted back into his nap. We are just passing through, after all. These days, running into the living is scarier than running into the dead. He went back to intensely studying that bikini magazine. After a while, he started muttering to himself. I would not mind running into a few women. It would definitely level up our quality of life. I rolled my eyes and went back to pulling the noodles. I had never done this before. I would only seen people perform it at hot pot restaurants. The dough I just mixed was too stiff. It would not stretch at all, so I added a bunch of water. Now it is a bit too soft. The three of us fell silent. Bipey stared blankly at the rain by the garage door. Who knows what was on his mind? Boom! Just when everything seemed calm and peaceful, a massive explosion erupted outside. Bipey jumped up in a fright. He bolted upright so fast that his head slammed into the cabinet behind him with a thud. My bowl of flour also ended up face down on the floor. Luckily, the dough was still in my hands. That guy Banzi, Bipey grumbled as he helped me pick up the bowl. I guess his explosives were a success. I managed a small smile, but my hand-pulled noodles were not exactly a success. They were thick at the ends and thin in the middle. Some pieces even snapped off. Whatever, it does not matter, as long as it is edible. Just as I was sprinkling flour over the noodles, Banzi came jogging back. He gave us 2 big thumbs up. He was wearing a rare, triumphant grin. How was the damage? You did not just set it off in an empty field, did you? Dare poked his head out of the RV window. It was okay. I saw 2 lone zombies, so I lit it and tossed it over. Did they blow to pieces, or were they still somewhat intact? Well, I happened to land it right on one of their heads. I made a gagging gesture. I picked up the flour bowl and turned to go back to the van. At that exact moment, Bipey suddenly moved. He whipped the dagger from his waist in one swift motion. He stared fiercely at the area behind my back. Banzi and I spun around instantly. Who is there? Show yourself, get out here. The garage was pitch black. I could not see a thing. I scrambled to hide behind Bipey. Dare grabbed his bow and jumped off the van, aiming straight at the intruder. Banzi also stood on guard, picking up a crowbar. Slowly, a figure began to emerge from the shadows. He had his hands up, approaching step by step, until we could finally see his face. Good grief. This time, the noodles really did hit the floor along with the bowl. It is 11. As if in a dream, I pushed past Bipey. I rushed toward the man soaked to the bone, pale-lipped and thin as a rake. I threw my arms around him. It was really him. It was 11, the one I thought I would never see again. I did not have time to notice anyone's reaction, not even 11's. The overwhelming mix of grief, sorrow, joy, and shock from this reunion instantly shattered my composure. It all turned into tears that flooded my eyes. I do not know how much time passed. I finally heard 11 whispering my name in my ear. I felt him hugging me back just as tightly. I realized right then that I would give anything for this moment. This single moment was enough to carry me through the rest of my life. Hey, you two, that is enough. Seriously, can you guys do the emotional bonding some other time? While 11 and I were still processing our reunion, Bipey interrupted our hug with a grumpy tone. Oh, right. I grabbed 11's arm. I pulled him toward the 3 guys who were still holding their weapons. This is 11. 11, these are the friends I met later. Bipey, Dare, and Banzi. Hello, 11 said, nodding to them. They did not move, nor did they greet 11 back. Hey Banzi, did you know you were being followed? Dare said quite bluntly. He sounded like he was talking to Banzi, but his eyes were locked onto 11. We know someone who has been losing sleep every night, clutching his walkie-talkie and calling out a certain name. Bipey's brow furrowed deeply. But I still have to ask, what are you doing here? Bipey. You guys. What is going on? I looked back and forth between the 3 of them in shock. This is 11. Weren't you guys helping me look for him before? Why are you treating him like he is the enemy? Get your head in the game. Bipey grabbed me, pulled me behind them, and shoved me back into the RV. Then he slammed the door shut. He was incredibly strong, and I did not want to start a fight with them. He leaned against the door, completely ignoring my protests. Why would you show up here? Don't tell me you have been following us this whole time, and just waited for the perfect moment to reveal yourself. Of course not. I have been staying at the hospital in this town. I heard the explosion, so. 11 swayed slightly, his face turning even paler. The hospital, you mean the one on the east side? Yes. Can I sit down while we talk? 11 lifted his shirt, revealing thick bandages wrapped around his stomach. What happened to you? Seeing this, I was so frantic, I almost jumped out of the RV window. But Banzi held me back. I am okay, do not worry. I got hurt after we were separated that day, 11 said with a faint smile. He quickly added, it was not a bite. Dare kicked a stool over toward him. 11 sat down, clutching his stomach. It is actually almost healed. I just got a bit too worked up just now. Why did the people at the hospital send you? They noticed you the moment you entered the town. Initially, the plan was not to interfere if you were just passing through. But then this guy, Banzi, made quite a ruckus. Everyone got worried, so they asked me to come take a look. Why would they send a wounded man? I volunteered. I have been recovering there all this time, and I have not done anything to help the group. I thought I would just take a quiet look. I figured it would not be dangerous, so I came. Bipey, Dare, and Banzi exchanged skeptical glances. 11 smiled at me again and continued. From the look of it, you guys must have run into scavengers or looters before. We have, too. But this guy was setting off explosives not far from our camp. If you were in our shoes, would you just let that slide? He had a point. Bipey and the others were left speechless for a moment. Thinking 11 had explained enough, I fought to push the door open. Banzi shrugged and stepped aside to let me through. Wait a second. Vipey reached out to stop me again. How many people do you have over there? How have you survived all these days? Have you ever robbed anyone for supplies? There are 10 of us in total. Rob others, number. We have been robbed 3 times ourselves. 11 looked Vipey straight in the eye without flinching. Half of us are elderly, women, or children who can't fight, plus a patient like me. There are only 4 people who can go out in shifts to scavenge. We do not even have the strength to rob anyone else. There is a supermarket inside the hospital, and before I arrived, they managed to clear out a large warehouse nearby. Add to that, the scavenging they did at almost every farm in the area. And we have barely managed to scrap by until now. The 2 of them locked eyes for a long time. Finally, Vipey averted his gaze. Seeing the tension break, I shoved Vipey aside. I pulled the soaking wet 11 onto the RV. Why are not you wearing a raincoat or using an umbrella? I helped him take off his wet shirt. Then I tossed him a dry towel. The wind broke my umbrella on the way, he said softly. He sounded a bit muffled. It was getting in the way of me tracking you. So I just ditched it. I carefully unwrapped the bandages. I almost burst into tears at the sight of the massive wound. It had been stitched up and treated with iodine. A jagged, ugly scar ran across 11's abdomen. The color was very dark, perhaps out of a shared sense of trauma among the wounded. Vipey, Dare, and Banzi finally lowered their guard. They crowded around, their faces showing flashes of pity. Sorry, man. We just had to grill you a bit, Dare said, his face contorted as if he were the one in pain. Our last lesson was way too brutal. I did not know if he was referring to the supplies we lost, or that terrifying, toad-like gash on 11's body. How did you even get this? Looks like it hurts like hell. 11 shook his head, signaling that he did not mind. He explained, I was chased into a dead end. Didn't watch my step while climbing a fence. It was pitch black and I was panicking hard. I landed right on a sharp piece of wood. Ripped me wide open. His tone sounded incredibly casual, but out of the corner of my eye, I caught him looking at me with deep concern. I pretended not to notice. I continued applying fresh iodine to his wound. Did your guts almost spill out back then? Vipey asked. He and Banzi were leaning against the doorframe, their expressions much more relaxed now. The deep part was not wide enough. A bit wider and they would've. Dare's face suddenly lit up with joy. Then how did you get rescued? I am not entirely sure myself. I was just running blindly while clutching my stomach. Then I blacked out. According to them, they found me at an intersection not far from the Suaku area. They happened to be passing by from outside the town. And then they brought me to this hospital. No wonder we could not find you. You definitely did not see the messages I left for you either. I finished applying the iodine, then took out some clean gauze to wrap the wound. Where's your walkie-talkie? I kept trying to reach you. I dropped it while being chased. I wanted to go back for it, but they swarmed in and crushed it. 11 lowered his head, looking guilty. Oh, it is fine, let bygones be bygones. Dare waved his hand, essentially forgiving 11 on my behalf. The point is, with an injury that serious, they managed to patch you up. There must be a pretty good doctor here, right? 11 shook his head and said, we only have 2 nurses. They were the ones on duty when the outbreak started. They said if my guts had actually spilled out, they would not have known how to fix me. Dare's eyes instantly sparkled. Nurses are even better. Can we stay with you and... What was it? Before he could finish his sentence, Vipey and Banzi dragged him away. Through the rearview mirror, I saw the 3 of them huddling together, whispering suspiciously. 11 looked confused and scratched his head. I smirked. That is just how those 3 are. They are a bunch of weirdos, do not mind them. I am sorry. I lost the walkie-talkie. He apologized to me once again. You are alive and that is all that matters. I took out more gauze to finish wrapping him up. He looked a bit restless. How have you been lately? Did you get hurt at all? I was planning to head back and find you once I recovered a bit more. I did not expect you to make it all the way south too. I picked up a notebook from the bedside and handed it to him. Here. This is my diary. I am giving you clearance to read it. Start from the day we got separated. You remember the date, right? 11 nodded and flipped the diary open. The garage fell silent again. Only the sound of the wind and rain outside, gradually weakening, could be heard. I grabbed a set of Dare's clean clothes for 11. He and 11 were about the same size, so they should fit perfectly. Then I closed the car door, leaving 11 alone inside. Vipey and the others were leaning against the truck, smoking. Seeing me approach, they looked at me like a bunch of jilted lovers. Hey, what is with those looks? I sat down beside them. What, you finally have time for us now? Dare chimed in with a salty tone. Are you really okay with leaving him there all by himself? I gave his head a little knock, but he just turned his head and said nothing. Seriously, what is your plan from here on out? Vipey asked with a completely serious face. It is not about my plan. It is about your plan. What is 11's plan? My opinion does not matter that much. TCH. Bipey awkwardly turned his face away. He calmly lit a cigarette. After a long moment, he stubbed the cigarette out on the ground and spoke. Whether it was before the apocalypse or after, accepting a new partner is never an easy thing, let alone entrusting your life to someone else without any reservations. So, when it comes to partners, quality over quantity. That is how we are, and that is how they are too. We were willing to accept 11 for your sake. It is because before we even met him in person, we already got to know him through you. We had long expected that he would become one of us. But that does not mean we can just accept the other 9 people from the hospital at the same time. And on the flip side, the folks at the hospital will probably feel the same way. Do you get what I am saying? Yeah. Either 11 comes with us. They saved 11's life. He won't leave them that easily. You guys saved my life too, sorry. We can't stay. No need. This is between me and 11. If any sacrifices have to be made, it should be by me and him. Bipey turned his head and looked at me frankly. Give me some time. Figuring enough time had passed, I stood up. I walked back towards the RV. Through the car window, I saw the journal close in front of 11. His hands were clenched so tightly they turned white. His expression was complicated, a mix of pain and desolation. Yet it also seemed to hold a hint of relief. In that instant, I understood. The choice was difficult, and yet very simple. I deliberately made some noise. Then, with a grand motion, I pulled open the car door. Behind the door, 11 was already waiting for me, with a relaxed expression. You are lucky to have met them, 11 said. You are lucky to have met your partners from the hospital too. I said, oui. He started to say something, then stopped. 11, I know what you are worried about. I cut in, deciding it was better to rip the band-aid off. No matter which one of us chooses to leave, we will feel guilty towards them, and it will hurt them. So why do not we just? Between you and me. I could not find the right word. Settle it internally. 11 broke into the same smile as before. I nodded forcefully. Settle it internally. This stays between us. He opened his arms, filled with a deep reluctance, regret, and resolve, and hugged me. At this moment, we would bury each other, along with that corner of our own hearts, deeply. Today, we easily found the school we were looking for. It is only about a 10-minute drive from the sea. From a distance, you can glimpse that patch of azure blue. It is beautiful. It is a town-level middle school, not very large in scale. It has thick concrete walls and an automatic retractable gate. A 4-story dormitory building. A separate complex building containing a reading room, a computer lab, science labs, and offices. A 2-story cafeteria, a basketball court, a soccer field with a running track around it, and a small playground, small but perfectly formed, both inside and outside the school. Tall coconut and palm trees are planted. There are also some other southern plants I can't name. Compared to the central regions, the climate here is much more humid. Everything looked lush and overgrown. Even though the sun was scorching, the sea breeze made it feel cooler than it used to be. Last night, we parked the car on the football field. The view here is wide open. First, it makes it easy to scout the school grounds. And second, it gives us a clear escape route. The first step to staying here long term is to clear out the zombies inside the school. We can't leave a single corner unchecked. We plan to clear the perimeter first, then sweep through the buildings one by one. We did not make a super detailed plan, because plans never survive first contact with reality anyway. So, are we doing this or what? Dare said, wiping his mouth. He had just polished off 2 large bowls of the beef can noodles I made. Bipey patted his stomach, and stood up, full of energy. The 4 of us geared up, grabbed our weapons, and climbed into the vehicles. As usual, Bipey and I were one team, while Banzi and Dare formed the other. We started from opposite ends of the football field, splitting up. Bipey drove me toward the dormitory buildings. I shot at the stray zombies that appeared through the open car door. I have gotten pretty slick with the bow and arrow now. I can even nail them in the head while standing in the moving car. Provided the speed is not too fast, of course. There is a bunch of them hiding here, Bipey said, as he kept banging on the hood with a rod to get their attention. He continued, near a broken large planter not far from the dorms. Zombies kept shuffling out one after another. What the hell were they all doing, huddled up over there? I felt a weird sense of curiosity. I had to go check it out. After 7 or 8 zombies had been taken down, I put on my helmet and stepped out of the car. I retrieved the arrows stuck in their heads, wiping them clean with a rag hanging from my waist. Then I pulled out my dagger and headed deep into the planter area. The sight almost made me lose my breakfast. A zombie was crouching over a corpse, devouring it with single-minded focus. The ground was a messy pool of flesh and blood, scattered with intestines and bones. Frowning, I held my breath, rushed up and drove the dagger into its skull. Then I stabbed the head of the corpse on the ground for good measure. I pulled the blade back quickly and left the scene. Found a dead body. I told Bipey. Not sure when he got in here, but he got swarmed. Bipey looked a bit concerned. Does that mean someone else was here before us? And they bit the dust right here? Hard to say. Let us keep looking. If he was on his own, it is no surprise he got trapped. Come on, we can't give up on this place just because of him. We continued our sweep. He started the engine. The car rumbled back to life. Steady now. We were much more cautious after that. Bipey stopped incessantly banging on the hood. Instead, he would wait until the zombies in an area decided to come out and play. Then he would just give the car door a light tap, and I would wait until everything was quiet before hopping out of the car to make sure there were no more threats lurking in the blind spots covered by vegetation. Bit by bit, we finally cleared our way to the front of the dormitory. The entrance was shut with an old-fashioned retractable gate. You could see shadows wandering through the hallways on every floor. We drove a circle around the dormitory building and finally pulled up right outside the gate. Bipey used the rod to bang on the hood again. Suddenly, the noise coming from inside the dormitory spiked. They leaned out from the gate and windows, clawing toward the outside. The sound of bodies tumbling down the stairwells echoed through the halls. "Watch out," I yelled. Bipey threw the car into reverse just in time. A zombie was yanked out of a window. It splattered into a bloody mess right before our eyes. Flesh and blood instantly covered the front of the car. "Holy crap, that is just two," Bipey started to say, his voice trailing off. He only got halfway through his sentence, but I could not agree more. The word disgusting does not even begin to describe a scene like this. "Don't you dare use the wipers. That'll just make it worse," I said weakly, slumping in the passenger seat. "Ha, I am not an idiot." He sighed in resignation. He drove the car a bit further away, then grabbed the water bucket and rags we had prepared earlier. Pinching his nose, he wiped off all that yellow and red gunk. "Look at these numbers. Clearing out the building tomorrow is going to be a real pain." When Bipey climbed back into the car, he was covered in a rancid stench. It was still early, but the disgusting scene had already drained all our energy. We could only hang our heads in defeat, grumbling, while continuing our work. Since we were clearing from back to front, the cafeteria was right behind the dormitory building. The distance between the two buildings was not that far. The zombies that were originally shuffling around in between had already been lured over by us and taken care of. The cafeteria was small. It had 2 floors. Each floor was only about the size of 5 or 6 classrooms. I peered inside through the glass door. Rows of plastic tables and chairs were neatly arranged. Because the doors and windows were shut tight, it looked quite clean. I pushed the door hard. Then I rattled the handle. It made a fair bit of noise. "Doesn't seem like anyone's in there." I got back in the car and said to Bipey, "Well, it is not impossible." He replied, "Besides mealtimes, hardly anyone ever comes here. Let us go." One down. Further back is the multi-purpose building. Unlike the dorm and the cafeteria, it is not a sealed building. You can go straight up the stairs. Should we go up? Just as I was waiting for Bipey's answer, Dare and Banzi arrived. The truck pulled up beside us. "How's it going on your end?" Bipey shouted. "No problem." Dare jumped down from the truck with ease. "We have swept the academic building. The classroom doors are all locked. There were only a few in the hallways. Already taken care of. This multi-purpose building. I doubt there is much in here either. We will just go up and check." Still full of energy, he pulled Banzi along, and the two of them dashed up the stairs. Bipey and I leaned against the car. We looked up. The first floor has 3 computer labs and 2 viewing rooms, all locked. I have checked. No problem. The second floor has 3 science labs and 2 demonstration classrooms. Looks like there is probably nothing there either. Dare and Banzi's voices quickly reached the 3rd floor office area. We watched their shadows slowly move to the middle of the hallway. Then silence. "Should we go up and take a look?" "It is fine. They should be searching the offices. If something happens, it will be loud." Bipey let out a yawn. I figured when the outbreak started, the teachers were probably stuck in their offices. Sure enough, it was not long before the two of them emerged from the office area and moved toward the 4th floor. Achoo. Dare was sneezing like crazy. "Hey, what is the situation?" Bipey shouted up. "Nothing's wrong." Banzi's voice sounded muffled. "Wait until we finish checking. We will be right down." A moment later, the two of them stood before us. Dare still could not stop sneezing, tears streaming down his face, looking like he was about to suffocate. One of the office windows was locked tight. When we went in, everything inside had rotted. "And that smell," Banzi said, adjusting the handkerchief covering the lower half of his face. "Ah, right." It hit me suddenly. I remembered how humid it gets in the south. Things get moldy in the blink of an eye. Looks like when we clear the dorms tomorrow, we will definitely need masks and goggles. Crap, you could not have said that sooner. Dare's eyes were bloodshot. His teeth gritted in frustration. In the afternoon, we hauled all the bodies outside the school, then dug up dirt to cover all the bloodstains. We also entered the cafeteria, opening all the doors and windows for ventilation. In the cafeteria pantry, the food in the cold storage had completely spoiled. It was crawling with cockroaches and rats. The moment we opened the door, we saw the floor covered in scurrying little pests. My skin immediately began to crawl. and the hair on my neck stood on end. The stench was so foul it made Dare throw up again. The air in the other storage room was not much better. Stored rice, soybeans, flour and other grains were already infested with bugs. Startled by our arrival, swarms of them flew up from the shelves instantly. Dare and I saw that mess and backed out immediately, running far outside the cafeteria to sit on the ground, gasping for fresh air. Those two are still in there. That is beyond brave. I sighed weakly in admiration. Dare nodded frantically beside me, unable to utter a single word. A good while later, as the sun began to dip in the west, Bipey and Banzi finally ran out with their arms full. Their noses were still wrapped tightly in handkerchiefs. They collapsed onto the ground and let the supplies scatter everywhere. Dare and I leaned in to check and found it was all vacuum-sealed food. There was honey, oil, noodles, seasonings, and canned goods. I pulled out a jar of canned peaches, thumped it against the ground to loosen it, and popped the lid. The four of us took turns digging in. Do we need to go back in one more time? Dare asked after a swig of the syrup. Banzi shook his head. What about the stuff inside? Are we just going to leave it like that? Dare continued to ask. The three of us looked at each other. We all broke into a bitter smile. Let us leave it at that for now. It is just too much in there. Bipey's tone was filled with pure revulsion. Once the power is back on, we will toss a germicidal lamp in there and let it blast for 3 days and nights. I said, right now, the office building is enough for us. Once we clear the zombies out of that dorm building, we will just seal it off and call it a day. That would be great. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Diary entry, this might be my final entry. I am waiting for the end of my life in this beautiful place. I finally understand what living is all about. I have found that carefree peace. We cleared the safety hazards in the dormitory building. The process was incredibly unpleasant, knowing the environment inside would be a total mess. We went in wearing goggles and masks. We did not enter the building directly. Instead, we found ways to draw their attention, stabbing those rotting, deformed heads through the railings. An hour later, all the visible them had been dealt with. All that remained were the ones lurking inside the rooms. Dare let out a loud shout, swinging a pickaxe to smash the door chains. Banzi gave the gate a violent yank. Bipey and I took the lead, armed with crowbars and knives. We entered the first floor, then stopped at the stairwell, getting into a defensive stance. Bipey tapped the stair railing several times. The loud clanging echoed throughout the building. We tilted our heads and listened for a moment. No movement. It looked like the ones outside were all we had to worry about for now. Let us clear the rooms, Bipey said. Let us do this. Dare and Banzi headed toward the second floor. Bipey and I moved toward the corridors on both sides. A few corpses lay in the hallway, the ones we had finished off from the outside. We stepped over them and began checking the rooms one by one. There were 5 rooms on the left side of the stairs. 2 of the doors were open. The sheets and quilts inside were already moldy. The other 3 doors were closed. A few of them were snarling at us through the window bars. Bipey and I killed them, then kicked the doors open one by one. After confirming no one had slipped through the cracks, we continued clearing the rooms on the right side. Man, it really reeks. Thinking that, I grumbled while plunging my knife into a zombie's eye socket. It twitched a few times, then went still. With a look of disgust, I pulled the knife out and wiped it on its clothes. No choice. Can't just leave them here. Seeing I was done, Bipey kicked several more doors open. Together, we dragged the bodies to the entrance. It would be a nightmare if these turned into a bacterial breeding ground. Once the first floor was cleared, we moved on to the floors above. The situation was pretty much the same. After everything was finished, the 4 of us dragged all the bodies onto a truck outside the dorm. They were piled into a high mound of corpses. In the lingering evening breeze, this pile emitted a foul, sickening stench. Even with my mask on, the fumes were enough to make my head spin. Where are we taking them to burn? Dare tried his best not to look at the heap. To the beach. Bipey jumped onto the truck. He squeezed into the driver's cabin. The 2 of us will go. It is enough. You and Banzi stay here and keep an eye on things. The truck drove east for about half an hour. Then Bipey finally stopped. The wheels carved a long, deep track in the sand. It was swallowed by the tide, then revealed again. Bipey and I sat in the truck. We stared blankly at the blue sea and sky for a long time. This is the closest I have ever been to the sea, Bipey said, with a hint of self-mockery. Never thought I would be here to do this kind of thing. Me neither. While admiring the horizon under the white clouds, we unloaded the bodies from the truck. Against the sea breeze, we both pulled down our masks. We greedily replaced the foul air in our lungs. 2 barrels of gasoline were quickly and carefully poured over the pile of bodies. Bipey struck a match and tossed it over. Instantly, a column of fire and thick smoke shot into the sky. When the tide comes in tonight, the remaining ashes should be swept into the sea. Bipey watched from a distance as the thick smoke billowed high. It grew fainter and fainter, gradually merging with the sky. You could say they have found a decent final resting place. After a round of cleaning up, we successfully moved into the 4th floor of the complex building. We each took the inner and outer rooms of an office. We cleaned out the furniture store at the mall. We brought back 4 beds and all sorts of bedding. The 3rd floor was turned into our storage room. It was stuffed with all kinds of daily supplies and medicine we hauled back from the mall. Judging by the quantity, surviving the entire winter would not be too difficult. In the evening, after the 4 of us finished dinner, we started mixing cement and sand. We had brought back quite a few bricks. According to the plan, we would build another wall outside the retractable gate. We would leave only a narrow opening, just wide enough for a large vehicle to pass through. However, we did not expect this measure to stop the living. It was purely to keep the zombies out. During the day, Banzi and Dare went to the mall and brought back 3 sets of solar power equipment. The power output was even greater than the last one. They immediately installed 1 set on the complex building and another on the soccer field. Meanwhile, Bipe and I meticulously searched the nearby farmhouses. We brought back stoves, gas canisters, vegetable seeds, fertilizer, farming tools, and so on. We even drove back a tiller. After dark, the 4 of us took turns to thoroughly till the soil of the soccer field. I did not go out. I stayed and guarded this plot of land on the soccer field. Everything that could be planted was planted. The other 3 were gone for a whole day. They returned late at night, looking extremely pleased with themselves. They showed me the fruitful results of their scavenging. It turned out the nearest village had been basically picked clean. So they went to a place a bit farther away. Not only did they bring back 2 or 3 chickens and ducks, they even caught a piglet in a paddy field. On top of that, they found well drilling tools and a water pump at a farmer's house. It could be said to be the most successful outing in history. Banzi and I spent the whole morning studying how to drill a well. Dare and Bipe, on the other hand, spent the afternoon studying the fishing gear they got from a fisherman's house. In the afternoon, we started drilling a hole in the center of the soccer field's edge. The well drill he brought back was a handheld, household model. One person could hold down the circular plate and drill straight down. The only problem was the solar power supply was not very stable. It could barely power the drill, starting and stopping intermittently. So, I, Bipe, and Dare squatted in a circle around Banzi. We watched curiously as Banzi, amidst the roaring sound, pushed the tall machine into the ground, bit by bit. After 5 or 6 meters, a stream of muddy water gushed out from the hole. Whoa, are we seriously this lucky? Water on the very first try. Dare was beyond thrilled. He dabbed a bit on his tongue to taste it. It is fresh water. Probably because we are near the coast. The groundwater must be plenty, Bipe said, rubbing his hands together in delight. But this water is so muddy. It is fine for the crops. But how are we supposed to drink it? I remember that guy Chinwei said. We need to pump it for a while, and the water will gradually clear up. How about we dig a bit deeper? About 8 or 9 meters should do. Once the hole was finished, we helped Banzi install the pump and pipes. Then we just crouched there like total idiots, oohing and awing as the water quality improved. Finally, Banzi hooked the pipe up to the large barrel we prepared. We filled a whole barrel to the brim. Dare did not stop until he would drag the hose across the entire vegetable patch. Early this morning, while I was still asleep, Bipe and Dare snuck out on some mysterious errand. It was not until noon that they returned with 3 electric pumps, 2 manual pumps they would salvaged from someone's house, and a mountain of pipes. In the time that followed, they worked like men possessed, drilling 3 more holes around the soccer field, and 2 more outside the main building. After finishing dinner, the 4 of us, full of energy, drove the RV to the beach for some scavenging. None of us had ever lived by the sea, so we did not have much common sense about it. We just longed for that bucket full of seafood experience we would see on TV shows. So, ignoring the tides, we waited by the pitch-black shore for several hours. Eventually, I fell asleep and almost missed the entire low tide. Holy crap, jackpot. Dare suddenly poked his head out of the window and let out a loud shout. Grabbing a flashlight, a small shovel, and a bucket, he rushed off the RV laughing like a maniac. The 3 of us finally snapped to our senses, grabbed our gear, and charged out after him. Each of us chose a direction and scattered. Under the flashlight's beam, I saw the shadows of all sorts of potential ingredients. But in my clumsy haste, I could not catch a single one. I was so frustrated I started stomping my feet, judging by the noise. The other 3 were not doing much better. The entire beach echoed with our shrieks and groans. About an hour passed. Our strength and patience were pretty much spent. We lined up one by one and slumped onto the sand next to the RV. The buckets only held a few unlucky oysters, some stone crabs, and shells I could not name. Anyway, it is enough for one meal, I said breathlessly. How should we cook them? Steamed, boiled, stir-fried, or grilled? Dare hummed thoughtfully. Oh, right. I also need to chill some beer with that groundwater. Take it easy on the beer. If you get gout, There is no one here to treat you. Bipe's voice sounded lazy. We are still missing a doctor. Benzi kept his eyes closed, cradling his head in his hands. His face was the picture of laziness and comfort. Yeah, just missing a doctor. I have been leaving markers for 11 and the others along the way. The moonlight is faint. The sea breeze smells fishy. It feels pretty good to be alive.